The 4-hour deconstruction of your perceived reality. Consider that your foundational beliefs about the world are wrong. What if the feeling of touch is an illusion? Your identity is a microbial collective, and time itself is not constant. These are not philosophical puzzles. They are documented scientific realities. This presentation is designed to be a 4-hour cognitive challenge. It's not about learning trivia. It's about fundamentally dismantling your perception. Prepare to question your senses, distrust your memory, and face the uncomfortable truths you've always ignored. This is your invitation to explore a reality you were never supposed to know. 1. The we within. You are a walking ecosystem. You think of yourself as singular. The most fundamental word in your vocabulary is I. You speak of me and mine with an unshakable, casual certainty, assuming that the entity you call you is a single, contained, and sovereign individual. You believe the borders of your skin neatly separate you from the rest of the world. But this belief, the very foundation of your identity, is a profound biological illusion. What if the being you call I is not an individual at all, but a colony? What if you are, in fact, a we? Because here is a fact that redefines human identity. By cell count, more than half of your body is not you. It is a teeming, complex, and ancient ecosystem of microbes. Trillions of bacteria, viruses, fungi, and archaea live in your gut, on your skin, in your lungs, and across every surface of your body. You are not a single organism. You are a walking rainforest, a mobile galaxy of strangers, a symphony of invisible guests so deeply integrated into your biology that you have mistaken their chorus for your own solo voice. For every one of your human cells, there is at least one microbial cell. They may only weigh a few pounds, but their influence is absolute. These guests are not just passive passengers. They are active, essential partners in the process of your life. You are, in fact, entirely dependent on them. These microbes help you digest your food. They manufacture essential vitamins your body cannot, and they train your immune system, teaching it what to attack and what to tolerate. But their influence goes far deeper, into the very seat of your consciousness. Scientists now call this connection the gut-brain axis, a complex, two-way superhighway of nerves, hormones, and chemicals. The microbes in your gut are a vast chemical factory, communicating directly with your brain. They actively influence your mood, your appetite, your stress response, your memory, and even your behavior. This is not a subtle effect. Studies on mice have shown that those raised in a sterile, germ-free environment are more anxious, less social, and less curious when you introduce certain microbes back into their gut. Their very personality changes. This forces an unsettling question. When you feel a sudden wave of anxiety, is it you? Or is it a chemical distress signal from your biome? When you have an intense craving, is it your desire? Or is it your microbial collective demanding to be fed? The voice you call your own may simply be the loudest in a committee of trillions. This biological reality shatters our traditional notion of self. When this internal ecosystem is disturbed by antibiotics, chronic stress, or a poor diet, the results are not trivial. The fallout is linked to depression, obesity, autoimmune conditions, allergies, and even cognitive decline. You think you are a machine that can be hacked, but you are an ecosystem that must be tended. This redefines identity itself. If trillions of organisms with their own DNA and their own goals are influencing your mind, where do you end and they begin? The line is not just blurred, it's non-existent. You are not the master of your body. You are the custodian of an ecosystem that has collectively learned to call itself you. This isn't a contamination. It is your inheritance. You received your first microbes at birth, passed down from your mother, a biological lineage far older than your human one. These microbes don't just live with you, they live as you. They are woven into your very being, and like any ecosystem, they demand care. They need diversity, balance, and the right fuel: fiber, plants, fermented foods. They are, in fact, your microbial biography, a unique fingerprint shaped by every place you've been, every meal you've eaten, and every person you've touched. The border of your skin is not a wall. It is a porous membrane, a living conversation. This truth forces us to rethink everything, even psychology. How many of your moods are truly yours, and how many are microbial? The next time you feel off, tired, inflamed, anxious, consider that it may not be a personal psychological failing. It may be your biome, the forest inside you, sending a distress signal. The garden is in drought. You are not a solo performance. You are a symphony. And when that symphony is in harmony, you feel well. When it is in dissonance, your sense of self fractures. The first step to self-knowledge, then, is to stop listening only to your thoughts and to start listening to the hum of your other selves. 2. The illusion of contact. You are a ghost in a world of repulsion. We navigate our existence with an implicit trust in the physical world, a trust built entirely on the sensation of contact. We believe we are touching the world. We feel the solid resistance of a tabletop beneath our fingers, the grounding pressure of the floor against our feet, the profound connection of a hug, the simple utility of gripping a pen. Our lives seem to be a continuous series of one thing meeting another, skin against object, skin against skin. But what if this fundamental assumption, the very bedrock of our perceived reality, is a sophisticated illusion? What if, in the strictest, most accurate physical sense, you have never actually touched anything at all? Not the clothes you are wearing, not the chair supporting you, and not even the people you love the most. This isn't a philosophical puzzle. It's a quantum mechanical fact. At the smallest, most fundamental level of atoms, contact as we imagine it simply does not exist. When you zoom in past the world of our senses, there are no solid surfaces grinding against each other. There is no physical interlocking of matter. What your nervous system interprets as touch is, in reality, a force, the electromagnetic repulsion between electrons. Every atom in your body is surrounded by a cloud of negatively charged electrons, and so is every atom in the object you think you're touching. These electrons are deeply antisocial. They refuse to share the same space. As your hand approaches a table, what's really happening is a microscopic standoff. A barrier of negative charges from your atoms pushes back against the barrier of negative charges from the table's atoms. They resist overlapping, like two powerful magnets of the same pole refusing to meet, no matter how much pressure you apply. The sensation you call touch is not a connection. It is a declaration of resistance. It is the combined force of your electrons and the object's electrons screaming, "No closer." And in that invisible, insistent rejection lies the truth. You never make contact. You are, in a very real sense, a ghost walking through a ghostly world, never truly colliding, always hovering, just an infinitesimal fraction above everything. This fact is more than just a piece of scientific trivia. It's a fundamental reality of the universe. This is because matter, when you truly look at it, is almost entirely empty space. An atom is over 99.99% nothing. Its nucleus is an unimaginably small point, and the electrons orbiting it are like distant satellites circling a vast empty city. Most of what you perceive as solid is just a structured field of probabilities and forces. So when you sit on a chair, you are not resting upon a solid cushion. You are, in fact, levitating ever so slightly above its surface, suspended by a force field that is pushing back against you with a force equal to your weight. Quantum mechanics provides the formal rule for this separation. The Pauli exclusion principle prevents the electrons in your atoms from occupying the same quantum state as the electrons in the chair. This principle, coupled with the electromagnetic repulsion, is what keeps your atoms from literally melting into and passing through the atoms of the world around you. You don't merge, you bounce. Every experience you have of pressure, of weight, of physical contact is a sophisticated lie constructed by your nervous system, which has evolved to interpret this complex repulsive force simply as a feeling. You believe you are pressing the keys on your keyboard. In truth, the electrons in your fingertips are being rejected by the electrons on the surface of the keys, and your brain translates that rapid, complex repulsion into the seamless, tactile illusion of touch. This illusion is so complete, so utterly convincing, that you build your entire life and sense of reality around it. Your very sense of connection, of intimacy, of being a physical agent in the world is based on it. Yet, beneath it all, there is always distance, a quantum gap that never, ever closes. Think about what this means, not just for physics, but for you. How do you understand your body, yourself, and your place in this world, knowing you are made of particles that will never truly meet anything? You exist within a perpetual shell of refusal. Everything you interact with, everything you hold dear, stays forever just out of reach. And yet, your subjective experience shouts the opposite. You feel the warmth of a hand in yours. You sense the solidity of the ground beneath you. You believe in the firmness and comfort of a hug. These experiences are profoundly real to you. They are emotionally charged, meaningful, and essential. But they are also, at a physical level, projections. They are your brain's masterful creation of an illusion of contact, based on electrical signals that are triggered by fields that never collide. You are a mind interpreting boundaries that never actually break. This gap, this chasm between the cold physical truth and our warm, lived experience, raises the most profound questions about our existence. If you never truly touch anything, then what is closeness? What is connection? What is intimacy, when all of it is mediated by invisible forces and neurological approximations? This strange and unsettling truth, that you are forever at arm's length from the world, extends beyond mere touch. It speaks to the core of the human condition. Because haven't you always, deep down, felt a kind of distance, a subtle, persistent separation between your internal self and the external world? You look at the world through your eyes. You listen through your ears. But there's always a membrane, a thin film of subjectivity between you and it. You try to bridge this gap through conversation, through love, through art. But the separation remains, a persistent reminder that your perception is not the thing itself, but a rendering of it. And now, physics agrees with this feeling. You don't touch the world. You simulate touching. Every handshake, every kiss, every step is a negotiation with a boundary that never breaks. But there is a profound beauty in that too. Because what your body cannot do, what your particles are forbidden from allowing, your mind does anyway. It invents contact. It turns raw repulsion into a feeling of connection. It weaves a rich tapestry of sensation out of mere electromagnetic deflection. In doing so, your mind creates a world where meaning is possible, where love is felt, where presence matters, even in the total absence of true, physical touch. You may never close the physical gap between your atoms and those of another person, but emotionally and cognitively, you can feel closer than atoms would ever allow. Perhaps that is the deeper truth, that closeness isn't defined by particle collision, but by resonance. It's not about physical overlap, but about mutual acknowledgement, shared attention, and empathy. And so, in a world where nothing truly touches, meaning still touches everything, including you. Let this sink in the next time your hand rests on someone's shoulder or your foot hits the ground. Remember, it's not the atoms that connect. It's the illusion that binds us. And that illusion, crafted through physics, perception, and meaning, is not a weakness or a flaw of the human condition. It is its greatest triumph. You live in a world where touch doesn't exist, and yet, you touch lives, you reach people, you make an impact. Even when your atoms keep their distance, your presence does not. That, perhaps, is the most human paradox of all. That we never touch anything, and yet we are never truly alone. 3. The river of self. You are a pattern, not a person. You carry an unwavering conviction that you are a continuous being. You feel instinctively that you are one person, one unbroken story, one self moving through time. This feeling of permanence is the bedrock of your identity. But this feeling, while necessary for sanity, is not rooted in physical reality. Physically speaking, you are not the same person you were 7 years ago. This is not a metaphor. You are not, in any literal sense, the same collection of matter that inhabited your name. Nearly every atom that constitutes your bones, your blood, your brain, and your heart has been systematically replaced. You are not a static sculpture carved from stone. You are a river, a constant, flowing pattern of particles passing through a temporary shape. The cells of your skin are shed, your organs regenerate, even the calcium in your skeleton is cycled out. The very substance of you is profoundly impermanent, yet you remain, or at least something that feels like you remains. The person reading this, the identity you claim, is not constructed from the same matter as the person who experienced your life 7 years ago. That person is quite literally gone, dissolved into the earth, exhaled into the air, scattered into the breath of others. And still, you carry their memories. You hold their regrets, their triumphs, and their wounds. You believe yourself to be them. How can this be, if not a single atom that built them stayed for the reunion? Science calls this constant exchange atomic turnover. It is a ceaseless dance of matter moving through you. The carbon atoms in your muscles were recently in the food you ate, the oxygen you breathe, the hydrogen in the water you drink. None of these atoms are yours. They are visitors. They arrive, they participate, and they leave. They form the temporary scaffolding of you. Your thoughts are powered by neural circuits lined with phosphorus from ancient oceans. The iron in your blood, giving you life, may have once pulsed in the veins of an animal long since turned to dust. At every conceivable level, you are borrowed. You are a temporary arrangement of eternal pieces. And when these pieces leave you, they do not die. They move on, becoming part of someone else or something else. You are not a fixed object. You are a process. Your body is not a thing. It is an event. This truth is staggering because it shatters the illusion of a static self. We live our lives as if we are fixed entities, clinging to a consistent identity as if it were anchored in matter. But our identity, it turns out, is more like music. The music exists not in the individual notes, the atoms, but in their arrangement, their structure, and the silence between them. You are not the matter that composes you. You are the pattern that this matter is forced to follow. You are a flame, which is visibly a thing, but is really a process of rapid change, never holding the same smoke, never burning the same particle of fuel. You are a whirlpool in a river, a stable shape made of water that is always moving on. This means your essence is not in your flesh. It is in your form. It is in the continuity of your habits, the memories you retain, the values you enact, even as your body serves as a revolving door for the universe's materials. Despite this, we fear change. We resist the idea of becoming someone new, even though we are, at a biological level, doing it constantly, every second. Your body betrays the illusion of permanence daily, and yet you act as if you are trapped in the person you were yesterday. But why? If the atoms don't stay, why should the shame? If your cells can be renewed, why can't your sense of self? We treat our identity like a cage, but biology insists it is a current. If the you from 7 years ago is physically gone, isn't it fair to let go of their failures, their fears, their limitations? Isn't it logical to forgive them, because you are literally not them anymore? This is the secret hidden in the science. Transformation is not just possible. It is inevitable. You don't have to try to reinvent yourself. You are reinventing yourself right now as you breathe. Atoms are leaving. New ones are arriving. You are, in every moment, both dying and being born. You are both departure and arrival. This process doesn't end with you. You are not a closed system. You are porous. You exhale yourself into the sky. You shed yourself onto every surface you touch. Those atoms move on. Some will feed the roots of a tree. Some will drift into the lungs of a stranger. One day, a carbon atom from your muscle might power the flight of a bird. You are not separate from the world. You are its active participant, one of its temporary shapes. This is the quiet comfort in this realization. Your disappearance is not an end, but a redistribution. You don't vanish. You dissolve. You return. You continue, not as one form, but as many. In this way, you are immortal, not in soul, but in substance. So the next time you feel stuck, small, or convinced you cannot change, remember this: change is your default state. Reinvention is not an ambition. It is a biological fact. The past version of you is already gone. The future one is being built. The present you is just a fragile bridge between the two. And a bridge is not designed to stay still. It is meant to carry you forward. Let go of the myth that you must stay the same to be real. The most real thing about you is your capacity to rebuild. If every atom in your body can be new, then perhaps your story can be too. 4. The gravitational squeeze, a metaphor for psychological compression. You begin each day taller than you were when you went to bed. This is not a feeling, not an illusion, but a measurable, physical reality. After hours spent lying horizontally, your body, freed from the relentless vertical pull of the world, has stretched to its full, unburdened length. You wake up restored, expanded, and yet this peak state is fleeting, lasting only for a moment. The second your feet touch the floor, the process of compression begins anew. That extra height, gained in the stillness of the night, starts to disappear, quietly, relentlessly. By the time you return to bed, you are measurably shorter. This change isn't caused by emotion or metaphor. It is the direct physical result of gravity itself. Throughout the day, every moment you spend standing, sitting, or walking exerts a downward pressure. The soft cartilage discs between your spinal vertebrae, which act as biological shock absorbers, are slowly squeezed and flattened under the load of your own weight. The simple, physical toll of existence etches itself invisibly into your posture. Though the difference in height is slight, perhaps just a few millimeters, the meaning it carries is immense. This daily cycle is not just a biological curiosity. It is a perfect, physical metaphor in motion. It is a quiet truth, told by your own skeleton, about how time shapes you, how living compresses you. The mere act of enduring the day makes you smaller, in ways you rarely notice until, one morning, you wake up not just shorter, but feeling older, less flexible. Think about how this process mirrors our internal psychological reality. You begin each morning expanded, restored, having floated free from the day's compression and the suspension of sleep. This is, in a way, the purest version of your body's form, your unburdened height. But the moment you stand, gravity reclaims you. And isn't this also true of our spirit? Aren't we all, in some fundamental way, taller in the morning? Aren't we a little more hopeful, more open, more expanded before the day starts pressing down on us? Before the weight of decisions, the noise of headlines, the friction of disappointments, the subtle glances that cut deeper than we admit, each moment of the day adds a new, invisible weight. By nightfall, you feel that compression not just in your spine, but in your soul. This is what time does. It doesn't always operate with the violence of a single storm. More often it works through the persistence of a relentless pull. It compresses, it narrows, it wears away the margins. We learn to adapt to this pressure. We slouch, not just physically but emotionally. We sigh a little deeper. We stop standing as tall in our convictions. We stop standing as tall in our convictions. We compromise, we defer, and then we defer again. And in this process, we forget the original unburdened shape of ourselves, the one that woke up taller, fuller. But perhaps what truly matters is not the compression itself, but the rhythm it creates. Because if gravity pulls you down every day, then sleep, in its wisdom, lifts you back up. If the world presses you smaller, your rest stretches you back out. There is a profound hope in that cycle, a promise of renewal in that pattern. You may shrink with the sun, but you rise again with it, even if it's only by a few millimeters, even if it's only symbolic, even if it's only just enough to remind you that recovery is real. Still, there's a lesson here that runs deeper than biomechanics. It's about pressure, about how the weight of existence doesn't need to be catastrophic to leave a mark. Most people aren't crushed by a single, defining trauma. They are compressed by 1,000 tiny ones, 1,000 small disappointments, rejections, and silences. You don't need a total collapse to feel smaller. You just need time. The slow burn of obligation eroding joy, the gentle way dreams are forced to shrink to fit the mold of what's expected. This is why noticing matters. Noticing how your body changes, how even your spine tells the story of your days, teaches you to pay attention to the smaller, quieter shifts inside. The way you start apologizing more often for existing. The way you stop asking the questions you used to. The way you become efficient instead of curious. That is your inner cartilage thinning. That is your soul growing shorter. But what if you could reverse it? What if you could create moments during the day that stretch you back out? What if you could pause long enough to expand, to breathe, to remember the morning version of yourself, the one who hadn't yet been pulled down by the gravitational tug of responsibility, insecurity, and comparison? Because maybe height isn't just about distance from the ground. Maybe it's about creating space from heaviness. Maybe it's about reclaiming lightness. And maybe you can find that lightness not by escaping the world, but by allowing yourself small, crucial moments of unwaiting. A genuine laugh with a friend. A silent moment by a window. A walk where you don't check your phone. These are your emotional spinal discs, your daily shock absorbers, your protection against the flattening. So the next time you wake up, pay attention. Stand tall, not just in body but in awareness. Feel that extra millimeter. Know that it's real. Know that it's real. Know that it's not just height, but a metaphor. A symbol of how you begin each day restored and renewed. And as you move through the hours, as the world starts pressing back, don't just surrender to the compression. Fight for the space inside. Because yes, you end the day shorter, but you don't have to end it smaller. You don't have to let the weight define you. You can carry it differently. Night is not the end. It's just the closing of a loop. And tomorrow, you rise again, taller, even if just for a moment, even if only enough to remember who you are when the world forgets to push. 5. The unseen self. Why your face is a mystery. You believe, with absolute certainty, that you know what you look like. This belief is a fundamental load-bearing pillar of your identity. You've seen your face thousands of times, in the bathroom mirror this morning, in countless selfies, in the accidental, disorienting glimpse of your own video feed before a call begins. You trust this image. You groom it, curate it, recognize it, and present it to the world as you. But here is the strange, unsettling truth. You have never, not even once, seen your own face. Not directly. Not with your own eyes, as it actually exists in three-dimensional space. What you have seen are merely representations, distorted echoes bouncing back at you. The face in the mirror is a reversed, flipped image. The face in a photograph is a two-dimensional, frozen, and framed fragment, distorted by the lens and the angle. The face on a video screen is a digital projection. The raw, unfiltered, living, breathing image of you. The one that other people see when they look at you remains a complete and total mystery to you, and you alone. You are the only person in your life who has never come face to face with your own expression. This sounds trivial at first, perhaps even poetic, but its psychological implications are unsettling and profound. It forces you to confront a deeper reality. Your entire sense of self, your visual identity, is always mediated, always inferred. You are, quite literally, constructing your idea of you from secondhand, corrupted data. You live your entire life as the protagonist of your own story, but you are the only one who has never been allowed to see what the main character actually looks like. Imagine a sculptor who could only feel the clay under their hands, but was forbidden from ever stepping back to see the sculpture they were creating. That is you, a builder of something you can only guess at, a being known more fully by others than by yourself. And still, we chase this phantom image. We seek it out in polished surfaces, we obsess over selfies, we scroll through tagged photos, desperately trying to reconcile what we think we are with what the world shows us. But every glimpse is a filtered one, distorted by angles, lighting, context, and most powerfully, by our own emotion. None of it is the truth. It is all a performance, caught in fragments. But this blindness goes deeper than just sight. If you've never truly seen your real face, maybe you've never fully known who you are either. Maybe your self-image, the one you carry in your mind, is just a collage of feedback loops. Compliments that stuck, criticisms that echoed, childhood memories that sculpted how you think you come across. You're not just blind to your appearance, you're blind to your effect. You walk through the world not knowing how your smile truly lands, how your voice actually sounds in the ears of others, how your mere presence shifts the energy in a room. You are forced to guess. You adapt, you apologize, or you amplify, based on the reactions you've been trained to expect. But the true impact of you, the unfiltered impression, exists only outside of your perception. Everyone else is walking around with a version of you in their minds, some soft, some sharp, some shaped by years of interaction, some by a single glance. You live in all those minds, in all those mirrors, in all those reflections, but you don't live in your own in the same way. This asymmetry creates a haunting truth. You are simultaneously the most familiar and the most mysterious person in your own life. This is why we become obsessed with control. We practice angles in photos. We check the mirror before we speak. We rehearse how to smile, how to nod, how to appear effortless. We do this not just because of vanity, but because we are terrified. We are terrified of being misunderstood, of looking wrong, of appearing out of sync with how we want to be seen. But this effort, this performance, this endless curating of our own reflection, it never closes the gap. No matter how carefully you present yourself, the person you want to be will never fully overlap with the person others perceive. You are the only person who can never see their face without a filter. And maybe that's why we feel so fragile in front of cameras, so uneasy in crowds, so anxious before a mirror. Not just because we are insecure, but because we are blind. Blind to our own form, blind to how we land, blind to how we belong. But there is a strange, profound kind of mercy in this blindness, because it means that your truest self, the one that is unedited, unposed, and unwatched, lives in the moments when you're not trying. It's the self that emerges when you're laughing at something absurd, when you're comforting someone without a single thought for how you look, when you are so absorbed in a task that the mirror is forgotten. In those moments, you become real. Not curated, not refracted, not polished, just present. You may never see what that looks like, but others do. And sometimes, just sometimes, their eyes soften when they see it. Because in those rare moments, you are no longer watching yourself from the outside. You are simply being. And that is the version of you they remember. Not the perfect photo, not the practiced mirror pose, but the unguarded you, the one you cannot see, and yet, paradoxically, the one that is most truly you. So maybe the goal isn't to finally capture your face. Maybe it's to live in such a way that you stop needing to. Maybe the person you're searching for in mirrors doesn't live in your appearance at all, but in your attention, your kindness, your laughter, your stillness. Maybe the mirror never told the truth because it wasn't designed to. Maybe your real face is something you give, not something you see. And maybe you can rest finally, knowing that being unseen by yourself doesn't make you less real. It makes you human. It makes you mysterious. It makes you whole. Because if you are the one portrait you can never observe without distortion, then perhaps the point was never to see, but to live as art in motion, felt by others, seen through action, mirrored not in glass, but in connection. 6. The subjective spectrum. Why your brain invents color. You operate under a fundamental assumption that you see the world as it truly is. You see a blue sky, a green forest, a red apple, and you believe these colors are real, objective properties of the objects themselves. This belief feels undeniable, like a fundamental law. But what if it's a complete fabrication? What if I told you that color does not live out there in the world at all? That there is no red in the apple, no blue in the sky? Those colors exist only as a complex, private, and ultimately invented translation inside your brain. What you call color is not a property of the physical world, but a subjective interpretation of invisible information. The red apple is not red. It is, more accurately, an object that has a surface which absorbs most wavelengths of light and reflects a specific wavelength that we label red. The light itself, the photons, are just packets of energy. They are colorless vibrations. They have a frequency, but they do not have a hue. The color is born, created in its entirety, only when that specific frequency of energy collides with your mind. Your brain is the artist that paints the world. It's a fiction, a useful survival tool you have mistaken for objective truth. You have never seen the world as it is. You have only seen the interpretation your biology allows. This interpretation is an astonishingly specific biological process. Your eyes contain photoreceptor cells called cones, which are tuned to respond to certain wavelengths, what we simplify as short, medium, and long, blue, green, red. When light enters your eye, these cones don't see color. They simply fire electrical signals to your brain. Your brain, which sits in total, silent darkness inside your skull, receives these limited pulses. It never sees the world directly. It receives only this sparse, electrical data, and from that, it must build everything: shape, sound, texture, and color. To create red, your brain performs a lightning-fast computation. It compares the intensity of the signals from the different cones and generates a color experience. But this experience, this sensation, is not in the light. It's in the neural code. The redness of the apple is a symbolic reconstruction of data, a best guess that your mind has made beautiful. This is made stranger when you realize this guess is not universal. Other species decode the same light differently. Bees see ultraviolet patterns on flowers that are invisible to us. Some shrimp possess up to 12 different types of color cones, compared to our 3. They perceive a spectrum of colors we cannot even imagine. To them, our vivid rainbow might be a dull, primitive grayscale. So, if their perception is different, whose version is real? The unsettling answer is none of them. There is no objective color. There is only perception. Your brain evolved this trick because it helped your ancestors find ripe fruit and avoid poison. But this function doesn't change the fact you are living in a filtered simulation, a projection of the electromagnetic spectrum that your brain has rendered for you. It takes invisible radiation and transforms it into the sensation of a golden sunset or a cold, steel-gray sky. But it's all just energy. This leads to a profound cognitive isolation. That language of color is entirely subjective. Your red may not be my red. We both point to an object and agree to call it red, but neither of us can ever know what the other person is actually seeing. The internal experience, the qualia, is trapped in isolation. We live in different private realities, assuming we share the same one. If color isn't in the world, what else isn't? Maybe your entire experience is just a map, not the territory, a virtual model generated in dark. And this is what changes everything. If the world is colorless until you perceive it, then perception itself becomes a sacred act. The sunset is only glorious when someone is there to watch it. Without your mind, there is no red, no yellow, no gold. Your attention, your consciousness, is what paints the universe. You are not just a passive witness. You are an active creator. You compose the world, turning invisible light into emotion, memory, and beauty. The idea that the red of a poppy doesn't exist in the flower, but is born in your perception, isn't a loss. It's magic. It is evidence that your mind is not passive, but generative. So the next time you see a color that stirs you, remember, that color does not live in the object. It lives in you. You are the decoder, the canvas, the final step in light's journey from a star to a stone, to your eye, to your brain. In that final step, the world becomes yours, not in ownership, but in authorship. What you see is not what is, it's what your brain allows to be seen. 7. The 200 millisecond ghost. You are living in the past. You move through the world with a deep, intuitive, and unspoken trust that you are experiencing reality as it happens. You believe your senses are a clear, high-definition, zero-latency window to the world. When you see a car brake, when you hear your name called, when you feel a sudden drop of rain, you are convinced that the event and your experience of it are simultaneous. You believe you live in the present. You believe in now. But this entire seamless experience of now is one of the most profound and necessary illusions your brain constructs. At every single moment of your life, you are in fact trailing just behind reality. The present you think you're inhabiting has already occurred by the time you become aware of it. You are, in a very real sense, always playing catch-up, living in a beautifully polished, curated replay of what just was. This isn't a philosophical quirk. It's a non-negotiable feature of your biological hardware. Your brain, for all its marvel, is simply not fast enough to keep up with the universe in real time. Everything you perceive, this very sentence, the light in the room, the faint sound of your own breath, has already passed into history by the time your consciousness is allowed to experience it. This delay isn't a flaw. It's a processing requirement. Your brain must receive raw, chaotic data from your eyes, ears, and skin. That data takes time to travel down your nerves. It must be decoded, interpreted, and most complex of all, integrated into a single coherent picture. Consider the journey. Light hits your retina, but those photons must be converted into chemical signals, which must then become electrical signals. These signals must travel the length of the optic nerve, pass through multiple processing layers in the brain, and be mapped into spatial understanding, all while being adjusted for context, shadow, and motion. This entire process takes time. Scientists estimate this neurological lag to be somewhere between 200 and 500 milliseconds. That's up to half a second. It may sound negligible, but its implications are staggering. It means you never see reality as it is. You only ever see it as it was. You are a ghost, living in the echo of a moment that is already gone. What's even stranger and more psychologically unsettling is that your brain doesn't show you this delay. It actively and brilliantly hides it from you. Your brain functions as a masterful post-production editor, stitching reality together to make it feel perfectly synchronized. The classic example is a simple hand clap. The sound of the clap arrives at your brain later than the visual information of your hands meeting. If you experienced this raw data, your life would feel like a poorly dubbed movie. Instead, your brain waits. It holds the visual information, waits for the slower audio signal to arrive, and then synthesizes them both into a single, instantaneous event, the clap. It delivers this polished reconstruction to your awareness. You don't live in the now. You live in your brain's final edited cut of it. This delay isn't just a sensory quirk. It's existential. It means you have never, not once, actually touched the present moment. You have only ever interacted with its shadow, its memory, its residue. When you look at the morning sun, the light you see is already 8 minutes old, having traveled from the sun to your eye. But even that pales in comparison to this. When you smile at a friend, your smile is a reaction to an expression that, by the time you process it, no longer exists on their face. This changes the very nature of action. When you reach out to catch a falling glass, you are not reacting to where the glass is. That information is already outdated. You are reacting to where the glass was half a second ago. Your brain, in its predictive genius, is forecasting the glass's likely position based on that old data, and moving your hand to intercept a future that it guesses will happen. You are not a present observer. You are a forecaster, pretending to be present, constantly making bets on slightly outdated information. The illusion is so total, so convincing, that we have built entire philosophies around being in the moment. We strive for presence, for the now. But this science suggests the now doesn't exist in any fixed, graspable way. By the time you notice a thought, the neural firing that created that thought has already occurred and faded. By the time you feel an emotion, the external stimulus has passed. Even your core sense of I, your very identity, is a delayed broadcast of your own biological motion. You are a curated echo of yourself. You are a curated echo of yourself. But instead of seeing this as a terrifying flaw, we can reframe it as a profound revelation. If the present is, by definition, always already gone, then every moment you experience is a memory. This means you can never truly capture or hold on to anything. Not a sunrise, not a kiss, not a pang of grief, not even yourself. Everything slips past before you can name it. And perhaps that ungraspable, fleeting nature is precisely what gives life its value. You are not here to hold the moment. You are here to be moved by its resonance, even if you are by nature always half a second late. So, what do you do with this knowledge? How do you live, knowing you're perpetually late to your own life? Maybe you stop trying to hold on. Maybe you stop trying to capture. And instead, you learn to flow. You learn to trust that your brain, this magnificent delay machine, is doing its absolute best to keep you afloat in a river that never, ever stops moving. You accept that clarity will always be slightly out of sync, that certainty is an illusion, that memory is your only window. And maybe that's enough. No one lives in the now. We all live in the shimmer just behind it. We are all late arrivals to a party that never stops, but the music still plays, and you, beautifully out of sync, gloriously behind, are still dancing. 8. The Dream Weavers. How sleep edits your past. You believe your memories are sacred. You trust that what you have lived, endured, and felt is safely stored, locked away in the vault of your mind like an artifact behind glass. You operate on the assumption that the past is fixed, that once an event happens, it belongs to a permanent, unchangeable archive inside you. But what if that archive is made of soft clay, not stone? What if your brain, without your permission, updates and alters your most cherished memories? And what if the most powerful editor of your personal history is not your waking mind, but the strange, surreal, flickering stories that unspool while you sleep? Dreams, it turns out, don't just process your emotions. They can quietly, invisibly, and permanently rewrite what you believe to be true. Your memories are not recordings. They are reconstructions. Science has confirmed that memory is not a perfect replay system. It is a creative, generative process. Every single act of remembering is not retrieval. It is rebuilding. Your brain doesn't pull out a pristine digital file. Instead, it assembles the memory from fragments, pieces, and associations, and it rebuilds it using the tools available right now: your current emotions, your biases, your recent experiences, and crucially, your dreams. Dreams don't just pull from memory, they actively return to it. They revisit the past, they touch it, they tweak it, and in doing so, they leave their fingerprints all over it. Imagine your memories as a gallery of paintings. Your dreams are like a rogue artist who walks through the gallery at night. They add a shadow to one face, soften the harsh light in another, or sometimes replace an entire element with something symbolic, exaggerated, or completely fabricated. When you wake up, you look at the painting, and it's still familiar, but the feeling has shifted. And the more you dream of it, the more your brain integrates that new, retouched version as the original, true memory. This is why eyewitnesses are notoriously unreliable. It's why two people can have completely different, yet equally confident, recollections of the same conversation. Memory is malleable, and dreams are one of the primary forces that shape it. This isn't a mystical idea, it's a neurological one. During REM sleep, the stage when dreams are most vivid, your brain reactivates the very regions responsible for emotional memory and visual imagery. It is, in effect, running a software update on your inner world, but there is no change log. You simply wake up and proceed with your day, unaware that a comforting image from your dream has now bled into a real memory, adding a layer of warmth that wasn't originally there, or that a dream about conflict has sharpened the edges of a past and the edges of a past argument. This isn't a deception, it's an adaptation. Your brain edits your past to help you survive the present. It tries to make meaning, to protect you, or to prepare you. But this meaning-making comes at the cost of objective accuracy. The past becomes unstable, not in a dramatic, sudden way, but in soft, subtle shifts that accumulate over years, like a photograph left in the sun. The more emotionally charged the memory, the more likely it is to be targeted for editing. Dreams are meaning factories. They take the emotional chaos of your life and try to organize it, symbolize it, and rehearse for it. In doing so, they weave new narrative threads into your mental tapestry. You dream of someone who hurt you, and in the dream, they are kind. You wake up, and your anger has, inexplicably, softened. The dream didn't just recall the memory, it reshaped it. Your brain then accepts this new version, not because it's factually accurate, but because it feels emotionally true. Emotion is the glue. If a dream's edit resonates with you, it stays, and the boundary between what happened and what you remember happening is forever blurred. But this blur isn't a failure of the system. It's a critical feature. A memory that never changes is brittle, like a scar. Dreams give your memories flexibility. They allow you to reframe, reinterpret, and even reimagine your past in ways that support your emotional survival. This doesn't mean your memories are false. It means they are alive, breathing, and subject to influence. And perhaps that is more human than a perfect cold record could ever be. What matters most in the end isn't just what happened, but what you took from it. And dreams are how your brain negotiates what to keep, what to reshape, and what to let go of. So the next time you wake from a dream feeling unsettled, or peaceful, or nostalgic for something you can't quite name, pause. Consider that something inside you has just shifted, not just in feeling, but in fact. Your past has been touched, lightly and quietly, by a painter in the dark. Maybe this isn't a flaw. Maybe this is the only way healing can truly work. Not by erasing the past, but by dreaming it into something survivable, something new. You sleep to rest your body, but you dream to restore your soul, returning to the pages of your own story, to write in the margins, shifting the weight of memory just enough so that you can carry it without breaking. 9. The Phantom Ride. How your brain fabricates motion. You trust your body. Above all else, you trust the feeling of your own movement. You believe that when your arms reach, your legs step, or your head turns, you are the one in control, issuing the command and feeling the undeniable, immediate, physical result. This sense of embodied motion is one of the most fundamental and non-negotiable truths of your existence. But what if that certainty is a complete illusion? What if, in certain moments, your brain can tell you and make you feel, with full-body conviction, that you have moved when you have, in fact, remained completely still? What if motion, like so much else, is not a physical fact, but a story, edited and narrated by your brain? Because here's the strange truth. Your brain doesn't wait for reality to confirm movement. It predicts it, it simulates it, and sometimes it flat-out fabricates it. This phenomenon is called illusory motion, and it is far more common than you realize. Have you ever sat in a stationary train and felt a jolt of panic as the train next to you began to move, convincing you for a split second that you were sliding backward? Have you ever worn a VR headset and felt your stomach drop on a digital roller coaster, even though your feet were firmly on the ground? These are not just in your head. They are full-body experiences. You may sweat, your heart may race, you may feel dizziness. This is your brain, the conductor of your sensory orchestra, receiving conflicting data. Your eyes say moving, your inner ear says still, and it simply decides which reality to create. In that moment, you feel yourself moving, not because you moved, but because your brain concluded that this must be motion, and it filled in the rest. But why would your brain, the organ of your survival, betray you on something so basic? The answer lies in time. Movement takes milliseconds to detect, and neural signals are not instant. To avoid a dangerous lag, your brain has evolved to be a prediction machine. It guesses what will likely happen based on context and visual cues, forecasting your own motion before it receives confirmation. Most of the time this works beautifully, allowing you to catch a ball or walk without overthinking. But sometimes, the forecast is wrong. The brain picks a side, and once it does, it floods your awareness with the matching sensation, regardless of whether the motion was real. Your most basic experience of your body is not absolute. It is constructed and negotiable. This means the brain often operates in reverse. You assume you move first, and then you feel. But the brain often creates the feeling, and the physical body either catches up or never does. This is the same mechanism behind phantom limb pain, where a person feels an agonizing clench in a hand that is no longer there. The brain's map of the hand remains, and it generates the sensation in total absence. If your brain can simulate pain in a limb that doesn't exist, why wouldn't it be able to simulate movement in a body that hasn't moved? This unsettling fact has profound philosophical weight. If motion, the very thing that grounds you in physical space, is up for negotiation, what else is? What about your feeling of certainty, your sense of being right, your perception of being safe or loved? Your brain is not a perfect mirror of reality. It is a survival engine. It prioritizes what works over what is objectively true. If convincing you that you moved when you didn't helps it resolve a sensory conflict, it will do so without hesitation. But there is a strange freedom in this. It means you do not have to believe every sensation your body produces. You can become the observer of the illusion, not just the character inside it. That sudden vertigo you feel? It might not be danger. It might just be a sensory mismatch. that falling sensation as you drift off to sleep. Not a prophecy, just the brain recalibrating its maps. You are not always the author of your experience. Sometimes, you are the reader of a script written by neural forecasts. And in those moments, you remember a vital truth. Perception is not a mirror. It is a lens. And every lens bends the light. 10. The preconscious script. Your brain decodes language before you do. You operate under the powerful illusion that you are in charge of listening. When someone speaks, a question, a joke, a confession, you believe you are consciously hearing the words, processing their meaning, and then formulating a response or feeling an emotion. You think comprehension is an active choice, a result of you paying attention. But the neurological truth is far stranger and more unsettling. By the time you consciously hear the sentence, your brain has already finished interpreting it. Before you are even aware of the specific words, before you've chosen to understand, your subconscious machinery has already decoded the meaning. You don't catch meaning, you receive it, fully formed. You think you're reading subtitles on the screen of your mind, but those subtitles are auto-generated by neural machinery that operates faster than you can think. You are not translating language. You are being fed its final draft. The conscious self, the you that you think makes decisions and understands things, is not the editor. It's the reader. It is the last in line, the afterthought, the applause that comes after the music has already stopped. This science is undeniable. Your brain processes spoken words with lightning speed. The auditory cortex receives sound, and within a mere 200 milliseconds, regions like Wernicke's area light up to interpret meaning. This is faster than your conscious awareness can even catch up. You don't wait for the end of a sentence to understand it. Your brain is a predictive engine, anticipating and constructing meaning in real time, guessing what comes next, layering tone and emotion onto syntax, all before you're even aware you've heard the words. That aha moment, the flicker of comprehension, is not the start of the process. It is the finish line. It's the moment when you, the conscious mind, are finally invited to the party, thinking you're arriving at the beginning when you're actually walking into the credits. Your brain did the heavy lifting. The understanding is delivered, not constructed. This raises unsettling questions. If your brain decides what language means before you get to consciously weigh in, how much of your life is truly yours? How much of your response is interpretation, and how much is reflex? Because language doesn't just transfer information, it shapes it. It frames reality, and your brain accepts those frames instantly. When you hear a sentence like, "You're not good enough," your brain doesn't pause to ask if it's true. It feels the punch first. The insult lands before logic can intervene. Conversely, when you hear, "You did great," the warmth of validation floods your system before you have time to assess whether you agree. The meaning comes first. Your conscious judgment comes later. This isn't a personal weakness. It's a marvel of evolutionary efficiency. Your brain evolved to process language as quickly as possible, to ensure survival, to make snap decisions, to feel the world before thinking about it. Yet, in our modern age of deliberate self-awareness, we act as if the conscious mind is steering the ship. We believe we hear, process rationally, and then respond. That's not how it works. What we call processing is, more often than not, just rationalization after the fact. Your brain makes the call, and then your awareness writes the explanation, a bit like reading the headlines and assuming you wrote the article. You're just catching up. Once you accept this, a strange sort of humility sets in. You realize that much of your interaction with the world is not the product of choice, but choreography. Automatic routines running just below the surface, scripts being read to you that you mistake for your internal dialogue. This is especially true with emotionally charged language. In a heated argument, someone says something cruel. You feel hurt before you even register the exact wording. You say something back. Later, you might not even remember the specifics, just the heat. That's because your brain prioritized the emotional payload, the tone, the threat, and reacted accordingly. The conscious mind steps in after the burn to try and clean up, to explain what just happened, but the sequence was already complete. You think you're deciding how to feel. You're not. You're realizing how you've already felt. This impacts everything. Your relationships, your political views, your identity. Think how quickly you judge sincerity, feel trust or suspicion, how easily a compliment lands or an insult wounds. It's not because you're superficial. It's because language bypasses your permission. It goes straight to your neural core, and sometimes what gets in stays there, shaping memory and bias, all without you realizing it entered through a door. Your brain opened before you were aware of the knock. So what does this mean for free will? If the conscious mind is the final witness, not the first responder, can you really claim to own every thought or reaction? Maybe not completely. But you can choose what happens next. You can train your awareness. You can learn to slow the feedback loop. You can learn to watch the auto-generated captions scroll across your mind and ask, is this true? Is this mine? Do I want to keep this frame? The brain is fast, but it is not final. It's predictive, not prophetic. You are not powerless. You're an editor with limited access, but you can learn to annotate. This is where meaning becomes malleable. If your brain delivers an automated sentence, they don't care about me, or you'll never succeed. You can notice the delivery and choose not to internalize it. You can flag it as an automated suggestion, not an absolute truth. In that micro moment of pause, you become powerful. You stop being the passive recipient of language and start being a translator, a curator. You begin to shape the story. So, the next time you hear a phrase that stings, remember, your body felt it before you knew it. Your brain assigned meaning before you could argue. But that doesn't mean you are a slave to the sentence. You are a participant in a story unfolding faster than you can follow. You can still learn to catch it, slow it, and reframe it. You are not the screen. You are the watcher. 11. The spokesperson in your skull. Why you are the last to know. You operate under a powerful and necessary illusion that you are the one in charge. You feel like the captain of your ship, the conscious author of your thoughts, choices, and actions. This feeling of I is the central command post. But what if this captain is just a figurehead? What if the you identify with is not the CEO of your mind, but its public relations spokesperson, a narrator brought in after the action to explain it to an audience of one? The unsettling truth from neuroscience is that most of your life is initiated outside of your conscious awareness. You don't choose your thoughts, you become aware of them. You are the last to know. This isn't philosophical speculation. It's a measurable fact. The famous experiments by Benjamin Libet were a profound blow to this illusion of control. Subjects were asked to do something simple. Move their finger whenever they felt the urge, and note the exact moment they decided to act. The shocking discovery was that the brain's readiness potential, a measurable burst of neural activity indicating a decision was being made, fired several hundred milliseconds before the subject felt the conscious urge to move. The choice was already in motion. Consciousness was simply catching up, like a press secretary scrambling to the podium to announce a decision that had already been finalized. Later, research expanded this gap from milliseconds to seconds. Brain scans could predict which button a person would press long before the person knew their own choice. And yet, every subject felt perfectly certain they were the ones choosing in real time. The illusion of conscious control is flawless, comfortable, and utterly false. This doesn't just apply to simple motor actions. It applies to your most complex preferences and beliefs. You dislike a stranger on sight, and only later do you construct a list of reasons why. You reach for a specific product, then explain it was the brand, when in reality, subconscious cues, like shelf height or color, made the choice for you. Your conscious mind is a master of justification. It keeps talking, explaining, and constructing meaning, spinning a coherent narrative to make peace with processes. It doesn't actually run. We build our identity on this illusion of authorship. We say, I chose, I decided. But the real machinery, the vast, silent network of memories, biases, habits, and evolutionary impulses, is doing most of the work. The conscious mind is a late-stage interpreter, translating complex internal patterns into simple summaries. So, who is running your life? Your subconscious is not a single entity. It's a vast committee. It runs on pattern recognition, emotional tagging, and efficiency. It evolved for survival, which requires speed, not reflection. It doesn't speak in language. It speaks in urges, impulses, and micro-tensions. Your conscious mind translates that raw murmur into a clean sentence. I think I want pizza. But that sentence is the echo of the thought, not its origin. This realization doesn't mean you are powerless. It means you must redefine control. The conscious mind may not initiate the impulse, but it can influence the subconscious over time. It can direct attention and change the environment in which the subconscious operates. You can't stop the subconscious script from being written, but you can, over time, rewrite future drafts. This is the quiet, long-term power of awareness. Imagine your mind as a vast corporation. The subconscious is the entire workforce, the engine room, the production floor. The conscious mind is the tiny boardroom. If the board believes it's personally running every machine, it's delusional and ineffective. But if the board observes the systems, understands the rhythms, and begins to strategically shift policy, retrain systems, and design better defaults, it can change the entire company's output. That is the true role of consciousness. The paradox is this: the more you become aware of your lack of direct control, the more influence you actually gain. You stop believing every thought that pops into your head. You learn to witness your own reactions without obeying them. You stop assuming that wanting something means you should have it, or that thinking something means it's true. You step back. In the space between the subconscious impulse and the conscious response, freedom is born. So when you hear yourself say, I don't know why I did that, that's not a failure. It's a glimpse behind the curtain. It's an invitation to look deeper, not to blame harder. Control isn't managing every move. It's about building systems you trust. Your conscious mind, the spokesperson, reads from a teleprompter loaded while you slept. But it can change the script for tomorrow. And one day, you'll make a better choice, not by fighting an impulse, but because you trained a better impulse to fire in the first place. That is real control. 12. The second brain, your heart's buried intelligence. From the moment you are old enough to understand the concept of self, you are indoctrinated with a specific biological hierarchy. You are taught that the IK, the conscious decision-making entity that is you, lives exclusively behind your eyes, nested within the cerebral cortex. The brain is cast as the undisputed monarch, the CEO of the biological corporation, the seat of all reason, logic, and control. In this narrative, the heart is demonstrated to the status of a simple servant. It is viewed as nothing more than a mechanical pump, a wet, biological metronome that squeezes and relaxes to push blood through your veins. We are told it possesses no more intelligence than a piston in an engine. At best, we grant it a role as a poetic metaphor for irrational emotions, but certainly not as a source of cognitive intelligence. We treat phrases like "trust your gut" as whimsical advice, devoid of scientific weight. But what if this entire story is a physiological lie? What if the heart is not just a muscle, but a mind in its own right? Hidden within the beating tissue of your chest, operating entirely beneath the threshold of your conscious awareness, lies a biological reality that neuroscience is only now beginning to validate. Your heart is not just a pump. It is a complex, self-contained neural processing center. It possesses its own intrinsic nervous system, a sophisticated network of over 40,000 neurons. This network is so complex that scientists have formally dubbed it the heart brain. This is not a poetic exaggeration. It is an anatomical fact. This little brain has its own short-term memory, the capacity to sense, to feel, and, most startlingly, to make independent decisions without consulting the head. This discovery upends the Cartesian dualism that has defined Western thought. We act as though the brain is the dictator, broadcasting one-way commands down to the organs. But the biological reality is a two-way street, and the flow of traffic is not what you would expect. Research shows that the heart actually sends farther signals up to the brain than the brain sends down to the heart. These signals are not simple status reports. They are powerful commands that actively influence your higher cognitive functions. The signals traveling up the vagus nerve from the heart have the power to shape your emotional processing, your attention span, and your perception of reality. When the heart speaks, the brain listens. The quality of this communication is measured in heart rate variability, HRV, the subtle variations in the time between beats. This variability is the language of your resilience. When your HRV is high and your heart rhythm is coherent, your brain functions at its peak. You are adaptable and emotionally stable. But when your HRV is low and the rhythm is chaotic, your brain's higher centers are inhibited. You become rigid, reactive, and anxious. Your heart is not just a reflection of your mood. It is actively generating the physiological state that allows your mood to exist. But the implications go deeper, touching on the nature of time itself. In a series of unsettling studies on intuition, researchers found that the heart appears to access information before the brain does. Participants were shown random images, some calm and some shocking. Monitoring revealed that the participants' hearts reacted, accelerating or decelerating, seconds before the shocking image even appeared on the screen. Before the brain could process the light, before the eyes could register the picture, the body knew. The heart knew. It anticipates the future emotional event and signaled the brain to prepare. This suggests the heart is plugged into a form of processing that bypasses our standard understanding of linear time. Furthermore, the heart's influence extends beyond your skin. While the brain's electrical activity is contained within the skull, the heart generates the body's single most powerful electromagnetic field, approximately 60 times greater in amplitude than the brain's. This field encodes your emotional state into a magnetic broadcast, strong enough to be measured several feet away. This provides a scientific basis for vibes or presence. When you walk into a room and feel immediate tension or calm from a stranger, you are likely detecting the interaction of electromagnetic fields. We like to think of our decisions as rational calculations made in the cerebral cortex. But the truth is that most choices are driven by an undercurrent of feeling originating in the body. We act on gut instinct, on a sense of rightness that precedes language. The heart is a primary architect of this process. You feel a pang of regret or a flutter of excitement long before your brain creates words to explain it. In our hyper-rational world, we are trained to suppress this intelligence, to override the heart with the brain's loud, analytical chatter. But the brain is a survival engine, prone to overthinking and anxiety. The heart is an integrative engine, valuing coherence and balance. The path to true intelligence is not to silence the brain, but to bring it into alignment with the heart, a state known as physiological coherence. When the rhythmic patterns of the heart synchronize with the brainwaves, the result is flow, a zone where clarity and intuition are effortless. So, how do we reclaim this? We must stop treating the heart as a subordinate pump and treat it as a partner. The next time you face a decision, pause. Shift your focus to your chest. Breathe slowly. Listen not for a voice, but for a feeling. Expansion or contraction, resonance or dissonance. That sensation is data from a 40,000 neuron network evolved to guide you. Your brain may be the observer of your life, but your heart is the author of the script. 13. The internal novelist. How your brain invents your motives. You walk through life with an ironclad conviction, a belief so fundamental you don't even know it's a belief, that you know why you do things. You believe your thoughts are honest, your decisions are intentional, and your reactions are reasonable. When you explain your choices, you do so with a clarity and confidence that feels like an objective report. You believe you know yourself. But what if most of that belief is a sophisticated, high-functioning fiction? What if your conscious brain is not an accurate historian, but a skilled novelist? A novelist whose only job is to weave a coherent, logical, and flattering narrative out of the messy, chaotic, and often contradictory processes happening deep within your unconscious? What if your sense of self is not a truth you discover, but a story your brain stitches together after the fact to make your life feel whole? This is not a psychological flaw. This is not a psychological flaw. It is a fundamental feature of the human brain, a mechanism known as confabulation. It is the quiet, constant, and automatic process by which your mind fills in blanks, smooths over inconsistencies, invents causes where none were known, and then presents that final, edited draft to your consciousness as fact. And here is the most haunting part. You believe it. You don't believe it because you are lying or because you are gullible. You believe it because your brain, the storyteller, never tells you it's making things up. It simply hands you the story as if it had always been there, the one and only truth. This mechanism is seen in its most stark, clinical, and terrifying form in split-brain patients. Individuals whose left and right brain hemispheres have been surgically disconnected. In one classic experiment, a patient was shown two different images simultaneously. His right brain, which controls the left hand, was shown a picture of a snowy scene. His left brain, which controls speech and the right hand, was shown a picture of a chicken claw. When asked to choose a related object from a set of pictures, his left hand pointed to a shovel, a logical choice for a snowy scene, and his right hand pointed to a chicken, a logical choice for a chicken claw. But here is the confabulation. When the patient was asked, "Why did you point to the shovel?" his left verbal brain had no access to the snow scene. It did not know the real why. A healthy brain might say, "I'm not sure." But the confabulating brain cannot tolerate a gap in the narrative. It must make sense. So the patient's left brain instantly invented a plausible, logical, and completely false explanation. He replied, "Oh, that's easy. You need a shovel to clean out the chicken coop." His brain saw the action, pointing to the shovel, saw the other action, pointing to the chicken, and wrote a story that connected them, protecting his sense of being a single, rational person. This isn't a clinical quirk. This is a window into how all of us operate, every single day. We are all, in a sense, split-brain patients, our conscious verbal mind disconnected from the vast, silent, unconscious machinery that is actually making most of the decisions. Think of your own life. You buy something you don't need, an impulsive, emotional purchase. When asked why, you don't say, "I felt a surge of dopamine from a subconscious advertising cue." You confabulate a rational story. It was on sale. I've needed a new one, or I deserved a treat. You rationalize the action after it has already been decided. You feel a sudden, instinctual dislike for a new person. Your why is not "they subconsciously remind me of someone who hurt me." Your confabulating brain writes a cleaner script. They were rude, they seemed dishonest, or I just got a bad feeling. This post hoc storytelling is so seamless, so automatic, that you rarely, if ever, question it. Your mind creates the powerful illusion of self-authorship, the comforting sense that you are the origin of your thoughts, the architect of your behavior. But behind the curtain, the script is being written by processes you will never see. This forces a profound question. If your brain invents stories to explain your actions, what happens to the objective truth? The answer is sobering. The truth gets edited. Your memories are not recordings. They are reconstructions. Every time you recall an event, you reshape it, coloring it with your current emotions, your biases, and your narrative needs. You smooth over your own contradictions. You make it make sense. Why would the brain do this? Why feed you a polished fiction instead of the raw, messy fact? The answer is survival, not just physical, but psychological. The human brain evolved not to be a perfect objective truth machine, but to maintain a functional, cohesive sense of self. A self that is fragmented, chaotic, and doesn't know why it does things is a self that is paralyzed. Confabulation is the immune system of your identity. It preserves the illusion of consistency. It smooths the narrative arc. It protects you from the cognitive dissonance of your own contradictory mind. If you acted out of petty jealousy, but see yourself as a generous person, your brain will subtly rewrite the memory, reframing the trigger to make your actions seem justified. Over time, this edited story becomes your truth. This doesn't make you dishonest. It makes you human. Everyone is walking around inside a story that feels true but was, in part, invented by their own internal novelist. But there is a profound power in seeing through this illusion. Once you understand that your mind makes up stories, you can start questioning them. You can learn to notice the gap between your impulse and your explanation. You can catch yourself in the act of rationalizing, and you can pause. You can ask the difficult, terrifying, and liberating question. Is this really why I did that? Is this memory accurate? Or is it just the version that makes me feel better? Am I telling the truth? Or am I just protecting my story? These are the questions that begin to separate you from your own automatic programming. This is not about distrusting yourself. It's about deepening your self-awareness. Confabulation shows you that your conscious mind is not a camera. It is a commentator. And commentators have biases, but they also have the capacity to reflect, to revise, and to grow. The moment you realize your brain is a storyteller, you stop taking its first draft as the final word. You begin to read between your own lines. And in that pause, in that humble, uncertain I don't know, you find the beginning of something more real than any confabulated truth. You find the space to finally start writing your own story, with both hands on the pen. 14. The radiant cell. You are a lighthouse in the dark. You navigate the world under the assumption that you are an opaque object, visible only when an external source, the sun, a light bulb, shines upon you. You look in the mirror and see a solid form that blocks light. In darkness, you are invisible. But this, like so many of our perceptions, is fundamentally untrue. What if, even in complete, absolute darkness, your body is glowing? Not metaphorically, not as a spiritual aura, but as a biological fact. What if you are, at this very moment, casting a faint, invisible light into the world? Because you are. The strange, quiet truth is that you constantly emit light. Your body is a biological lamp, glowing with photons, actual, measurable particles of light, produced by your own cells. This phenomenon is known as biophoton emission. It is not heat, it is a cold, visible spectrum light, a byproduct of the simple act of living. As your cells metabolize, they create highly reactive molecules, free radicals, that interact with the lipids and proteins in your body. And this chemical reaction releases a tiny spark, a single photon. This is happening constantly, in every part of you. You are, in effect, a lighthouse whose beam is thousands of times too dim for the naked human eye to detect. But it is undeniably real. Scientists have used highly sensitive instruments to capture images of this light, faint outlines of the human form glowing softly, with the face and hands shining most brightly. This glow is not random. It has a pattern. It fluctuates with your circadian rhythm, peaking in the late afternoon. It changes with stress, with meditation, and with disease. Your inner light tells a story, even if no one is there to see it. We are blind to this constant, personal radiance. Evolution did not equip our eyes to see such subtle signals. It tuned them for the harsh, overwhelming light of the sun. And so we live in ignorance of our own glow. But in this truth lies a haunting metaphor, a physical parallel to a deep psychological reality. What if our most constant, truest qualities are, like our biophotons, simply below the threshold of common perception? What if our presence is radiant in ways we can't detect? This is not just a metaphor. It's a model for our unseen impact. Think of the energy, the effort, the kindness, the thoughts you emit every day. You walk into a room, and your quiet presence shifts the mood. You send a message, and it echoes in someone's mind for years. You smile at a stranger, and they carry that small light through a hard day. You never know the full effect of these actions. You are, in effect, emitting a social and emotional light that you cannot see, but which has a real, measurable impact on the world around you. You are radiant in effect, even when you feel invisible. Think of the times you have felt unseen, overlooked, or that you didn't matter. In those very moments, your cells were physically releasing light, silently affirming your existence. On a molecular level, the universe did notice you. You glowed. The fact that you, or anyone else, could not see it is irrelevant to the fact that it was happening. This forces us to confront the limits of our own perception. If your own body can be shining without your awareness, how much else about the world are you missing? How much beauty, how much truth, how much danger exists in wavelengths you simply aren't built to see? Reality is not limited by your senses. Your senses are limited by biology. There is a profound, poetic symmetry to this. Your cells burn energy to keep you alive, and in that process, they give off light. You shine, literally, because you are alive. You are not a cold machine. You are a flickering field of warmth and radiance, a quiet fire in human form. So the next time you feel invisible, pause. The next time you feel invisible, pause. The next time you wonder if you matter, remember. The next time the world seems blind to your effort, close your eyes and know that you are still glowing. The light is soft. It is silent, but it is there. It is measurable, permanent, and yours. You are a silent lighthouse, casting signals into the dark in ways you will never see. And in a world obsessed with visibility, perhaps the most sacred light is the kind no one sees, but that never stops shining. 15. The hidden fire. What a radioactive banana teaches. You about fear, you reach for a banana without a second thought. It is the definition of a humble, harmless fruit. It's familiar, curved, yellow. Something you give to a toddler, blend into a smoothie, or pack in a lunch. You peel it without fear. You bite into it without suspicion. It is, in our collective consciousness, a symbol of simple, safe nutrition. And yet, deep inside this most ordinary of objects, something extraordinary and powerful lingers. Tucked beneath its gentle skin is a silent, ancient, and invisible presence. Radiation. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, but literally. Bananas are measurably radioactive. Each one contains a small but detectable amount of potassium-40, a naturally occurring isotope that, as it decays, emits tiny particles of radiation. The amount is infinitesimal, and it is not dangerous. You would have to consume millions of bananas in one sitting to feel any effect. But the scientific fact remains, with every bite, you are ingesting the energy of atomic instability, a quiet whisper of the universe's most fundamental processes. The banana is, in its own small way, glowing, not with visible light, but with a subatomic truth that destabilizes our assumptions about the world. This fact is not unique to bananas. Many things you interact with daily are radioactive. Your own body, the soil, the air, granite countertops, and even the person sitting next to you. Bananas have simply become the poster child for what scientists call natural background radiation, the low-level, constant bath of radiation that surrounds us, not from power plants but from the Earth itself. The fruit is so reliably radioactive that physicists have even created a whimsical unit of measure called the banana equivalent dose to help explain radiation exposure in familiar terms. A dental X-ray, for example, is equivalent to eating about 5 bananas. A cross-country flight is several hundred. This joke is lighthearted, but the reality it reveals is profound. It forces us to re-examine our relationship with fear. We are trained to fear radiation as some external, glowing green monster, a symbol of apocalyptic disaster. But the truth, as the banana shows, is that radiation is not a rare monster lurking outside. It is a permanent, intimate process unfolding within. It is simply decay, the breakdown of atomic bonds. And from that breakdown comes energy, transformation, heat, and light. Radiation is not evil, it is the universe reorganizing itself. The warmth of the Earth's core, the power of stars, the medical scans that save lives, all draw from this invisible force. The radioactive banana, then, becomes a powerful metaphor. It is a symbol of how the most ordinary, mundane, and seemingly simple things can carry within them an unimaginable and hidden power. What looks soft, sweet, and simple may harbor forces far beyond our immediate senses. And isn't this profoundly true of people as well? How often do we assume someone is harmless because they are quiet, or that something is safe because it is familiar? We expect danger and power to wear a dramatic mask. But sometimes, the real potency is invisible, humming beneath the surface, its half-life ticking away. We are all, in our own way, radiating a quiet, unseen energy that is missed by those who only glance but never truly look. This single, simple fruit becomes a doorway into a more complex truth about risk and perception. It forces us to ask how much of our reality is softened by our own assumptions. You trust what feels natural, but nature is not simple. It is filled with paradox. The sun that warms you also bombards you with radiation that ages you. Safety, then, is not about the absence of a threat. It is about balance, context, and thresholds. This teaches us not to trust the surface, to look deeper, to remember that behind every simple smile, there is complexity. There is a strange beauty in this, that the universe hides its deepest mysteries, not just in distant nebulas, but in plain sight, in your kitchen. The radioactive banana is a quiet poem, a reminder that the extraordinary is not elsewhere. It is right here, in the small yellow arc you didn't think twice about. So the next time you peel a banana, do it with a newfound reverence. You are not just holding potassium. You are holding an echo of starfire. You are holding the same unstable particles that power galaxies and keep the Earth's heart warm. You are tasting the fundamental contradiction of existence, that something can be both nourishing and unstable, harmless and powerful, familiar and sublime. You are not living in a world of neat categories. You are living in a world of radiant fruit and silent power, and everything glows, just a little, if you only know how to look. 16. The Choice Labyrinth. How a 64-square board contains more futures than the cosmos. You sit across a small, finite wooden board. 64 squares, 32 pieces. It looks contained. A simple pastime, a pattern of black and white. You assume, as we all do, that its limits are obvious. But what if that quiet grid holds more complexity than the entire known cosmos? What if the number of possible, unique, legal chess games is so vast that it makes the number of atoms in the universe seem like a rounding error? This is not a riddle, it is a mathematical fact. The estimated number of atoms in the observable universe is around 10 to the 80th power, a 1 followed by 80 zeros. The estimated number of possible chess games is 10 to the 120th power. This isn't just a bigger number. It's an incomprehensible rupture in our understanding of scale. We are trained to think of infinity as something that lives only in the stars, in the vastness of outer space. But this fact proves that infinity also lives in the space between your fingertips. What creates this exponential, staggering depth is not physical size. It is the power of decision. At each turn in a chess game, the number of possible moves branches out, and those futures multiply, and those new futures multiply again. After just 10 moves by each player, the number of possible unique games is already in the trillions. This is not chaos or randomness. It is the explosive, geometric power of choice. This makes the chessboard the perfect, unsettling metaphor for life itself. Your life, too, is built on a finite board with a clear set of rules. The laws of physics, your biology, your mortality, the constraints of time. Yet, within those limitations, the number of possible outcomes, the number of possible yous, is immeasurable. The person you are in this exact moment is the result of millions of micro-decisions, each one branching you away from trillions of unchosen paths. Just like in chess, we are all fumbling in a complexity too vast to ever fully grasp. We can, at best, see one or two moves ahead, making guesses based on patterns and intuition, blind to the true, long-term scope of our consequences. The smallest move, the way you answer a question, the choice to stay silent, the decision to go or to stay, can send ripples forward through time, opening and closing entire futures you will never even know existed. In this way, we are all grandmasters of invisible universes, playing against the unknown. And chess, unlike games of chance, offers no comfort. There is no luck, no roll of the dice. Every move is deliberate, and every consequence is earned. The board is a silent, ruthless teacher. It shows you that rules and boundaries do not constrain potential. They are the very things that create it. It is the structure that gives birth to creativity. Remove the rules, and you don't get freedom. You get noise. This is true for you. You are a finite being in a finite body, and yet you contain more possible trajectories than the stars contain atoms. Most people never learn this. They see the board of life and believe it's only about winning, about achieving checkmate, status, security, success. They move only to conquer, not to explore. But the true master, in chess and in life, sees something else. They don't fear the branching tree. They savor its complexity. They make peace with the fact that most of the tree will remain unseen. They know that mastery is not control. It is awareness. It is the humility to stand before an infinite array of choices and know you are co-authoring a reality too large to ever own. So the next time you sit before a choice, no matter how small, pause. Feel its weight. You are not just making a decision. You are navigating a multiverse. You are folding time and consequence into a single shape, choosing one future out of more than the cosmos can count. That humble click of a pawn, that quiet yes or no, is a miracle in motion. It is a reminder that infinity is not out there. It is right here, in your hands, and in the quiet mind that dares to see more than just black and white. 17. The living hard drive, DNA's infinite archive. You think of DNA as a distant biological term, something buried in textbooks, a complex double helix spun from genes that scientists examine under microscopes. You know it codes for your eye color, your height, your health risks. You know in essence that it makes you you. But what if this biological blueprint is only half the story? What if DNA is not just a molecule, but a medium? Not just a blueprint for life, but the most sophisticated, dense, and perfect hard drive in the universe? What if the code inside your cells holds, quite literally, the future of all human knowledge? Because it does. DNA is not just the story of your body. It is the universe's most elegant storage system, operating billions of years ahead of human engineering. Let's begin with the staggering, almost incomprehensible scale of this. The entirety of the global internet, every email, every photograph, every medical record, every streaming video, every transaction, every single meme, stores around 1,200 zettabytes of information. This data is housed in massive, physical data centers that cover continents, cooled by rivers, and powered by entire cities. Now, imagine taking all of that, the entire digital footprint of humanity, and shrinking it down, not into a room or a server, but into something smaller than a single spoonful of dust. That is the storage capacity of DNA. Scientists estimate that DNA can encode information at a density of roughly 215 petabytes. That's 215 million gigabytes per gram. A single strand, invisible to your eye, can carry more structured knowledge than every device you have ever owned combined. It achieves this not with electricity or magnetism, but with chemistry. It doesn't use a binary code of zeros and ones. It uses the four-letter organic code of life. A, T, C, and G. The nucleotides that spell all existence into being. Unlike our digital hard drives, DNA storage is organic. Each cell in your body contains around 2 meters of this code, yet it fits inside a nucleus less than 1/100th the width of a human hair. It is coiled, folded, and compacted not chaotically, but with a precision and efficiency that makes our best engineering look primitive. This same code runs in you, in coral reefs, in mushrooms, and in tigers. It is the universal language of the biosphere. And unlike our code, it doesn't crash or fragment. It mutates, yes, but that mutation is what we call evolution. It doesn't corrupt, it adapts. Human science is only now catching up to what biology has known all along. Researchers have begun successfully encoding digital files, music, movies, books, even computer operating systems, into strands of synthetic DNA, and then decoding them with perfect accuracy. Why? Because DNA is the ultimate archival format. It is stable for thousands of years. It requires no electricity to maintain. It is easily replicable. It doesn't degrade from heat or cold like magnetic tape or silicon chips. The future of storing our history may not be in glass drives or quantum computers. It may be in a gel-like spool of chemical symbols. Nature cracked this problem long before we even knew there was a code to crack. But this metaphor goes deeper than just technology. It speaks to the nature of your selfhood and your memory. DNA doesn't just store what you are. It stores when you are. It is a time capsule. The genes in your cells have been copied and recopied through an unbroken continuous chain, stretching back billions of years. Every living thing on this planet is just a different edit of the same ancient story. You carry in your body, not just your own story, but the living diary of every ancestor. Their resilience, their scars, their adaptations, their survival, it is all written into you. This leads to a profoundly humbling realization. You are not the author of your code. You inherit it, you express it, but you did not choose it. It was chosen for you by billions of years of survival. You are not your own beginning. You are a single chapter, a node in a recursive loop spanning millennia. And yet, you are not just a passive reader. In your choices, how you eat, how you move, how you love, you actively shape how that ancient code unfolds. You influence what gets expressed and what gets silenced. Your DNA may be inherited, but its meaning is co-authored by your life. In this, DNA reveals that complexity does not require size, and vastness does not require space. An entire internet can live inside a droplet, and an entire lineage can echo inside a cell. You are not a blank slate. You are a library. You cannot read yourself directly, but you are being read, every moment, by the machinery of your body. When you realize this, you stop underestimating the small, the subtle, the silent. You realize that power is often quiet. Biology didn't just create life. It built the internet before we did. You are a miracle of molecular engineering, carrying a strand that could hold the knowledge of nations. The future of information may be digital, but its origin and its destiny is molecular. And that molecule is already inside you, whispering. 18. The emptiness of matter. Why you are 99.9999% nothing. You walk through the world with an absolute, unshakable faith in solidity. You believe in walls that stop you, in chairs that hold your weight, in bodies that block light, and in the tangible reality of mass. You tap your fingers on a wooden table, feel the surface resist your push, and you take this constant, tactile feedback as definitive proof. You are a solid object, interacting with a solid world. You look at crowds and see density. You look at cities and see mass. You look at yourself and see substance. But what if this entire foundational belief is nothing more than a sophisticated sensory illusion? What if the table, the walls, and even your own body are, in fact, not solid at all? What if every object you've ever touched, including your own skin, is almost entirely empty space? If you could somehow reach in and remove the vast internal void inside the atoms that make up every single human on Earth, if you could compress our essence down to only what actually occupies space, you could fit the entire human race, all 7 billion of us, into the volume of a single sugar cube, all the skin, bone, blood, and thought, reduced to a speck small enough to stir into coffee. This is not a poetic exaggeration. It is the literal, fundamental truth of physics. Each atom that serves as a building block for your body, your memories, and your breath is over 99.9999% empty space. The scale is impossible to truly grasp. If the nucleus of an atom were the size of a single marble, the nearest electron would be orbiting at a distance of several football fields away. And in the vast gaping expanse between that tiny core and its distant satellite, nothing. No substance, no filling, no stuff. There is only a shimmering field of potential, an electric dance of probabilities. The electrons themselves are not tiny, solid planets. They are more like clouds, existing as smears of presence or flickers of potential, smeared out across space and time. So, what are you actually experiencing when your hand touches the table? It is not contact. It is not solidity. It is repulsion. It is force fields. The electric fields of your electrons are forcefully pushing against the electric fields of the table's electrons. You never, ever make contact. You float, held aloft an infinitesimal distance, by an invisible, powerful scaffolding of electromagnetic force. This illusion of solidity is so convincing that it holds your organs in place. It allows you to hug. It builds mountains and steel. It crushes cars, and it lets a pianist strike a note. But beneath all of that, beneath the skin, the tissue, and the skeleton, lies a cathedral of emptiness, a vast internal sky filled not with substance, but with arrangement. You are not made of stuff. You are made of space. You are an illusion of density, formed by patterns of charge and probability. If we could collapse all that space, eliminating every shell, compressing every nucleus, the entire human race would become a speck smaller than a teaspoon. A sugar cube of sheer nuclear matter, impossibly heavy, yes, warping spacetime with its weight, but vanishingly small. Why does this matter? Why should this disturb or comfort you? Because it means the scale of reality is not what you think. It proves that size, shape, and solidity are performances. Tricks played by forces too small to see, choreographed so perfectly that we forget they are acting. It means that what seems full may be empty, that what looks crowded may be spacious, and that the body you curse in the mirror is, In fact, mostly air, bound together by an atomic consensus. Suddenly, your problems feel lighter, your story more flexible. Because if you are not solid, then you are not stuck. If you are mostly space, then you are mostly possibility. And maybe this is why we can feel so full inside when we grieve, or love, or fear. Because something deep inside us knows we are not crowded. We are vessels. The soul, the self, fits easily inside us because we are almost entirely open. The heart has room to echo because it is built of quantum caverns. You think you contain yourself, but you are not a container. You are a framework, a filament of being stretched across emptiness, humming like a string. This emptiness is not a failure. It is the function that makes interaction and life possible. You walk through a world of ghosts mistaken for statues, a world where matter is not mass but motion, where form is not substance but spin. You are not made of the clay of the earth, but of the distances between its particles. And still, you live, you feel, you hold a child whose atoms could pass through yours, if not for electromagnetic law. This is the central paradox of your existence. You are empty, and yet you matter. So the next time you feel too big, too much, too heavy for your own life, remember the sugar cube. Remember that if the universe collapsed all your atoms to their cores, you would vanish from view. And still, that dot would matter. You matter. Not because you are dense, but because you are a rain. You matter because your emptiness hums with history, potential, and life. You are not a mistake of matter. You are a marvel of space. 19. The stillness of speed. Caging the universe is constant. We think of light as the one immutable thing in the universe. It is the cosmic courier, the messenger that outruns time, the absolute line that always moves forward. Light is speed itself, the universal speed limit, the very symbol of relentless motion. It travels at nearly 300,000 kilometers per second, a velocity so profound that it sets the boundary between the possible and the impossible, between cause and effect. It is the C in EMC2. But what if this untouchable, untamable force, this thing we worship as pure velocity, can be brought to its knees? What if, in a quiet lab, under precisely controlled conditions, light can be made to freeze, to pause, to rest, because it can? Scientists have taken the fastest thing in existence and brought it to a complete stop, and this fact changes everything we believe to be fixed. To understand this miracle, you must first forget the idea of light as a bullet. It is not just a particle. It is a wave, an oscillation of fields, and it behaves like a ripple, changing its speed as it passes through different mediums like water or glass in a vacuum. It races at its full, iconic speed. But in the right environment, something astonishing happens. In 1999, physicist Lin Hao and her team at Harvard created one of the most extreme environments in the universe. A cloud of sodium atoms chilled to just a fraction of a degree above absolute zero, the point where all motion ceases. Into this quantum fog, they fired a pulse of light. It slowed from 300,000 kilometers per second to just 17 meters per second, the speed of a fast bicycle. Then, using quantum tricks, they stopped it completely. They held the light, suspending its information within the cloud like a memory in a jar. Then, they released it, reanimating the pulse. It was no longer just a beam. It was a message paused mid-flight, a ripple held still in the palm of human hands. The implications of this are staggering. It means that speed is not destiny, and that even the most relentless forces in nature can be negotiated with. But the implications go far deeper. Light isn't just fast. It defines fast. Our entire understanding of time relies on how light moves. The official definition of a second is measured by the frequency of light from a cesium atom. GPS satellites must constantly correct for time dilation caused by light's relative speed. To stop light is to literally tinker with the gears of time itself. It is to pause the one thing that tells everything else to keep moving. When light is frozen, a kind of temporal silence falls, a stillness in the very machine that drives our perception. Furthermore, light is information. Every photon carries data. When you look at a distant star, you are reading a photon that began its journey millennia ago. When we stop light, we are stopping history. We are holding a sliver of the past in place. This turns a lab into a vault, a whisper of the universe caught mid-sentence. Imagine stopping the light from a person's smile, holding that glow not as a photograph, but as a preserved expression, a moment literally paused in light itself. This is the human desire to hold time still, sculpted from pure physics. This breakthrough forces us to confront the illusion of constants. We are raised to believe some things cannot change. Light is fast, gravity pulls, time moves forward. But the universe, it seems, is more pliable than we assume. What we think of as ironclad laws are often just habits of nature. When we learn to speak the right language, the language of absolute cold, of quantum coherence, the rules begin to bend. This scientific humility is what makes discovery so beautiful. We find that nature is willing to yield, to respond. There is a profound psychological dimension to this. If light, the very symbol of clarity, speed, and certainty, can be brought to a halt, what does that say about our own frantic human urgency? We live in a culture addicted to motion, speed, and brightness, chasing the next click, the next task, the next thrill. But perhaps, like light, the most luminous parts of ourselves are not those always in motion, but those capable of being held. Thoughts that are allowed to linger, emotions that are allowed to settle. Maybe our inner light doesn't lose its truth when it stops. Maybe it becomes clearer. This power, however, reminds us of fragility. The conditions required to stop light are precise and unforgiving. Absolute cold, perfect quantum coherence, a tiny misalignment, and the light scatters. Stopping it requires balance, care, and intention. This, too, is a metaphor. It teaches us that stillness is not laziness. It is mastery. Pausing is not failure. It is a skill. To freeze light is to create a tiny bubble of perfect order in a universe driving towards chaos. Perhaps that is what we are all trying to do, in our own small ways, to stop the rush of the world, just for a second, and hold something true in our hands. 20. The atmospheric lie. Why the sun is white and our truths are yellow. Every morning, you wake up to a story you've been told since childhood. It's a story told in light, in art, and in language. The sun is yellow. You were given a yellow crayon to draw it. You see its golden hue spill through your curtains, and you accept this as a fundamental, indisputable fact of your world. The sun is warm. The sun is golden. The sun is yellow. But what if this is a complete fabrication? What if this comforting universal belief is a massive optical illusion? Because it is. The sun, the unfiltered, objective star at the center of our solar system, is not yellow at all. It is, in fact, pure, brilliant, stark white. The yellow you perceive is not the sun's truth. It is a distortion created entirely by the thin, fragile envelope of air you live beneath. The sun does not emit yellow light. It emits a white light, which is the combined, balanced spectrum of every visible color, from deep violet to blood red. If you were floating in the vacuum of space, shielded from its raw power, and looked at the sun, you would not see a gentle golden orb. You would see a blinding, piercing, almost cold whiteness, The yellow is a lie told to you by our atmosphere. This illusion is a side effect of a process called Rayleigh scattering. As the sun's pure white light enters our atmosphere, the molecules in the air, oxygen and nitrogen, act as tiny filters. They are far more effective at scattering the shorter wavelengths of light, blues and violets, than the longer wavelengths, oranges and yellows. This scattering is what paints our sky blue. You are seeing the deflected, scattered blue light from every direction. The sun, meanwhile, having been robbed of some of its blue light, appears slightly yellower to our eyes. This effect becomes dramatically more intense at sunrise and sunset. When the sun is low on the horizon, its light must travel through a much thicker, denser slice of atmosphere to reach you. This longer journey scatters the blues and violets almost completely, leaving behind only the most resilient, longest wavelengths, the deep oranges and reds. The romantic, beautiful sunset is not a purer version of the sun. It is its most extreme distortion. We have mistaken this beautiful atmospheric hallucination for objective fact, and we have built our myths, our moods, and our cultures on top of it. This is not just a lesson in optics. It is a profound and unsettling lesson in perception. It is a physical metaphor for a psychological truth. We never see objective reality. We only ever see reality as it is filtered through our own atmosphere, our culture, our expectations, our language, our emotions. We don't see people as they are. We see them colored by our position relative to them. A memory feels bright or dim depending on our current mood. A truth feels noble or shameful depending on how we've lived with its consequences. Nothing arrives to us raw. Everything is scattered before it reaches the core of our awareness. And here is the dark psychology of it all. We prefer the illusion. We don't want the raw white truth. The pure white sun is overwhelming, stark, and contains everything. It is, as the source text notes, too honest to look into. We want the warm, golden, yellow version because it's comfortable, symbolic, and nostalgic. We need the story. We prefer the filtered warm lie to the cold, complete truth. Our illusions, when shared, become our culture. The yellow sun is wrong, yes, but it's a beautiful, necessary kind of wrong. Still, the truth remains. The sun is white. And when you truly accept that, you are forced to ask what else you've misread. How many of your core beliefs are just atmospheric conditions? How many of your truths about yourself are just scattered light, filtered by your past? You begin to wonder what parts of you are yellow because you were told to be, and what parts might be pure, unfiltered white, waiting behind the haze. The goal, then, is not to just see, but to ask how you are seeing, to understand the filter, to let go of the comfortable gold so you can finally grasp the whole spectrum. 21. The paradox of proximity. Why the strongest force is a metaphor for love. You've heard of power in many forms. You have felt the pull of gravity, a force strong enough to hold oceans in place and bend the path of planets. You have seen magnetism, a force that can snap metal across a room or levitate a train. You have witnessed the explosive power of a hurricane. But beneath all of that, buried deeper than any of your senses can ever reach, inside the very heart of the matter that makes you, there exists a force so unimaginably strong that it holds the entire fabric of reality together. Without it, nothing you see would exist. Not you, not the earth, not the stars. It is the strong nuclear force, the hidden, silent bond at the center of every atom, and it is the most powerful force in the known universe. But this ultimate power comes with a profound, poetic, and deeply unsettling paradox. This force, the strongest thing we have ever discovered, only works when things are unimaginably close. It does not shout across a room. It does not even reach across a molecule. It operates only within a fraction of a proton's width. Outside that minuscule, intimate range, it disappears instantly, completely, with no residual pull. It is a force of absolute strength, yet it is defined by a ruthless, absolute, and non-negotiable need for proximity. In that contradiction lies a beautiful and terrifying lesson, something almost spiritual. The greatest powers in existence don't shout across distances. They whisper, but only at the point of contact. They hold tight only when you dare to draw close. To understand its strength, you must descend into the core of matter, into the atomic nucleus. This place is not a peaceful sanctuary. It is a raging war zone. The nucleus is packed with protons, each one carrying a positive electrical charge. And as any child who has played with magnets knows, like charges repel. Every proton in that nucleus is screaming, trying to fly away from every other proton with a ferocious electromagnetic repulsion. By all classical logic, the atoms in your body should instantly and violently explode. Your entire structure should disintegrate. So why doesn't it? Because of the strong force. It is the only thing powerful enough to override that scream, to silence the electrostatic repulsion and bind the warring particles together. It is the cosmic peacemaker, the clasp that holds the universe in form, and yet this force is shy. Its range is less than 1 femtometer, a millionth of a billionth of a meter. If the strong force were a hand, it could lift mountains, but it could only grip what was already pressed firmly against its palm. This is what allows atoms to exist. It's what allows stars to burn, powering the fusion that forges new elements. It is the fire behind all fires, and it is working inside you right now, in trillions of atoms, a miracle of nuclear harmony. And yet, we never feel it. We feel gravity when we fall. We feel heat. We feel light. But this, the strongest force of all, is completely hidden. Its strength is internal, intimate, and silent. And perhaps that is its true lesson. Not all strength is visible. Not all power announces itself. Sometimes, the thing that truly holds the world together is the thing that is least seen and least understood. This brings us to the metaphor, because isn't this exactly how human connection works? Think of the bonds that truly define your life. Love, loyalty, memory, grief. Are they loud? Do they operate with ease across vast distances? Or do they, like the strong force, demand closeness? Do they demand physical, emotional, and psychological proximity? The people who have shaped you the most are not those who stayed far away. They are the ones who sat beside you in the dark, who held your hand, who saw you without your mask. The strongest human forces, empathy, trust, true forgiveness, they don't activate from a safe distance. They only operate in proximity after you allow yourself to be vulnerable, after you draw close enough for the natural repulsion of fear and ego to be overruled. And once you are there, once you are inside that sacred microscopic range, the bond that forms can be, like the nucleus, almost unbreakable. But here, the metaphor holds its tragic edge. If you pull away, even slightly, the bond vanishes. Just like the strong force, these human powers don't reach forever. They have a finite, intimate range. They cannot bridge every silence. If ignored, they collapse. This fragility is not a weakness, it is precision. It is what gives intimacy its sacred, terrifying meaning. It means you must choose to stay near, every day, for the force to hold. And this bond is not a simple, soft hug. It is a binding. Once activated, the strong force is nearly impossible to break. That's why nuclear energy is so powerful. When we split an atom, the energy released is the shrapnel from that collapsing bond. It is the echo of a bond forged in closeness, exploding from the violence of separation. We have learned to harness, and even weaponize, the breaking of closeness. But perhaps one day, we will learn to cultivate its strength instead. Imagine relationships that obey the laws of the strong force, unwavering once established, silent but indestructible, respectful of boundaries, but absolute in their commitment. Imagine a society that understood that real strength doesn't travel far, but anchors deep. This force teaches us that to bind, you must first risk friction. But once you commit, the structure becomes unshakable. So the next time you wonder what holds you together, remember the strong force. Remember that inside every atom, a cosmic promise is being kept. A choice for cohesion over chaos. And the only condition for this miracle is closeness. 22. The code of kinship. Why a banana is your ancestor. You walk past a banana in a fruit bowl, and you see an it. You see a simple, disposable object. A snack, a source of potassium. It is food, not family. It is a biological commodity that exists, in your mind, to serve you. This perception is built on a lifetime of assumed separation, a deep and unspoken belief that you are here, and the natural world is over there. You are the sentient observer. It is the inanimate object. And yet, deep within the cells of that humble yellow fruit, a script is embedded that is, in a very real sense, your own. What if I told you that approximately 60% of a banana's genetic material is identical to yours? Not metaphorically, not as a poetic gesture, but chemically, measurably, and literally. If you unspooled your DNA and laid it beside that of a banana, more than half of the base pairs, the molecular letters that script every detail of your existence, would match. Wrong. This is not a mistake or a coincidence. It is the signature of a shared origin. It is proof that life, beneath all its wild and wonderful expressions, is a single, shared text. We are not standalone stories. We are all just different chapters of the same book, written in a universal language of molecules that the entire living world understands. A, T, C, and G. The reason for this is that evolution is not an inventor. It is a master recycler. It does not reinvent the wheel. When it finds a biological process that works, a gene for cellular respiration, a mechanism for DNA repair, it preserves it, copies it, and reuses it, not just across generations, but across entire kingdoms. The core machinery of being alive was perfected billions of years ago in our shared ancestors, and you share that machinery with the banana you eat, the tree that gives you shade, and the bacteria in your gut. This realization is a direct, profound, and necessary assault on the illusion of human exceptionalism. We build our cultures, our identities, and our economies on the myth that we are separate from, and superior to, the natural world. But molecular biology does not recognize this separation. It proves we are not a standalone invention, but a recent remix of ancient biological elements. You are descended not just from primates, but from the moss, the algae, and the ancient creatures that floated in primordial seas. The history of life is not a ladder you stand at the top of. It is a vast, interwoven web, and you are but one thread. Perhaps this truth feels threatening to our ego, but in another light, it is deeply comforting. It means you are never truly alone. You are never isolated. You are never outside of life. You are life. The same carbon that structures the banana's flesh is the carbon that forms your skin. The same energy from the sun that fuels its ripening also fuels your every heartbeat. You are in a constant, dynamic exchange with the world. When you eat that banana, you are not a consumer conquering a product. You are participating in a cycle older than history. A literal reunion of atoms that were temporarily separated and now, briefly, rejoined. As you digest, the boundary between self and other collapses. Part of the banana, your distant genetic relative, literally becomes you. Its molecules are repurposed to build your cells. This is not just a joke. It is an invitation to humility. It forces us to question the stories we've inherited about control, ownership, and hierarchy. If the fruit you eat is your cousin, do you treat it differently? If the forest outside your window is built from the same ancestral sequences that shaped your own lungs, Do you still see it as mere scenery or as kin? This matters, now more than ever, as we live in an age of ecological crisis, a crisis born from this very illusion of separation. We see nature as a warehouse to be plundered, but DNA sees only continuity. This shared biology holds the key to a new, and desperately needed, ethic, one based not on dominance, but on relationship. To know that the food on your plate is a relative, not just a resource, to know that what you destroy, you are also diminishing within yourself. That is not sentiment. That is science. That is a cellular truth. The banana, then, is a reminder of your lineage. It reminds you that you are not the apex of creation. You are a passage, a single note in a song that is billions of years long. You are ancient and fleeting, specific and yet shared, a single moment in life's story, but a meaningful one. DNA is not just the code of life. It is the signature of unity, the spiral bridge that connects self to other. 23. The ghost in the wall. Quantum tunneling and the end of impossibility. You have spent your entire life learning to believe in barriers. It is the first and most fundamental lesson of the physical world. A door closes, and it stops you. A wall stands, and you cannot pass. An edge separates here from there. You were taught, by every interaction you have ever had, that the world is a place of hard limits, of physical laws enforced without exception. If you throw a ball at a wall, it bounces back. If you push on reality, it pushes harder. This is the world you were raised in, a reality of certainty, of rules written in stone, of impossibilities baked into the very fabric of what is. And so, you learn to live within your lane, to accept your limitations, to believe that some things simply cannot be done. And then, a quiet revolution in physics, born in the early 20th century, leaned in and whispered otherwise. Quantum mechanics does not politely revise our reality. It explodes it. It tells you that the particles that form the building blocks of that wall, that ball, and your own body do not follow the rules you thought were law. It tells you that at the smallest, most fundamental scales, the universe behaves like a riddle. One of its strangest, most unnerving, and most powerful truths is a phenomenon called quantum tunneling. It is a process so bizarre it sounds like pure fantasy, yet it is not only real, it is the reason you are alive. In simple terms, particles, when faced with a barrier they should not be able to cross, sometimes do the unthinkable. They vanish from one side of the wall and reappear on the other. To understand how, you must abandon your intuition. You must enter a realm where particles are not solid balls. They are instead wave functions, shimmering, ghostly clouds of probability, smeared out across space and time. They don't exist in one place so much as they have a chance of being in many. This wave function, unlike a solid object, is generous. It leaks. When a particle approaches a barrier that it classically does not have the energy to climb over, its wave function seeps into the wall. It decays, yes, but it never goes to absolute zero. And if the barrier is thin enough, a tiny, improbable fraction of that wave function will seep all the way through, meaning there is a small, but very real, probability that the particle will simply reappear on the other side, as if the wall was nothing more than a suggestion. It doesn't break the wall. It doesn't smash through it. It bypasses it. This is not a theory. It is a measurement, and it is not rare. Quantum tunneling is the engine of our universe. Without it, the sun would not burn. The fusion process in the heart of our sun requires protons to slam together and fuse. But protons are both positively charged, and their electromagnetic repulsion creates an impossible barrier. They do not have enough energy classically to overcome it. But they tunnel through that repulsion, defying the barrier, and in doing so, they light the sky, grow our food, and fuel your every breath. Your very existence is powered by this tiny, constant rebellion. It is also the engine of our modern world. The semiconductors in your phone, the flash memory in your computer. These technologies rely on electrons tunneling through barriers that should be impossible. The universe, it turns out, is built on the improbable happening constantly. And when you let that sink in, when you ask what this means, not just for particles, but for possibility, something in you begins to shift. If the very foundation of physical matter allows for something so strange, so soft as tunneling, then maybe your own perceived limitations, the walls in your own life, are not as absolute as they feel. How many times have you faced your own barriers of trauma, fear, memory, or doubt, and believed them to be solid stone? How often have you assumed that transformation requires a violent, forceful breakthrough, a meltdown, a crash? But what if, instead of crashing through, you could tunnel? What if, like the particle, you didn't need more energy or force, but simply a different understanding of the rules? What if the shape of your mind, like a wave function, could be trained to extend beyond what fear defines as your edge? Quantum tunneling reminds us that not all change is visible, not all passage makes noise. Sometimes, the most miraculous shifts happen not with a bang, but with a shimmer. Not when you fight the wall, but when you exist in a way that the wall's logic never accounted for. You simply appear on the other side, not broken, but different. And no one, not even you, can point to the exact moment it happened. It was too quiet, too subtle, too improbable to track. This isn't breaking the rules, it's obeying the deeper ones. The universe doesn't enforce its boundaries with iron fists. It hums with exceptions and probabilities. And sometimes, improbability is all the permission you need. So maybe that's true for you. Maybe your breakthrough isn't about force. Maybe it's about coherence, about holding yourself steady, calmly, and courageously, long enough that your possibility begins to leak through the wall. You stop fighting the barrier, and instead you become the version of yourself that already exists beyond it. You don't conquer the wall. You simply render it irrelevant. 24. The superposition self. You are all possibilities until you have been raised from your first breath to believe in a world of binary logic. A thing is here or it is there. A coin is heads or tails. A door is open or closed. A door is open or closed. Your entire reality is built on this fundamental, non-negotiable principle of either or. You are taught that to step on one road is to, by definition, leave the other road behind. Your world is solid, absolute, and decided. But beneath this firm, reliable surface of classical perception, the universe is built on something far stranger, quieter, and infinitely more flexible. In the quantum realm, the fundamental building blocks of your body and your world do not obey the logic of either or. They do not decide until they are forced to. They live in a shimmering, ghostly haze of possibility, a superposition of all outcomes. They are, in fact, in multiple states, multiple places, at the very same time. This is not a what-if scenario. This is the central, verified truth of quantum mechanics. A single particle, like an electron or a photon, can exist in all possible positions, all possible energy states, and all possible futures simultaneously. It is not here or there. It is here and there, in a wave of pure potential, until the moment you look. The most famous and unsettling demonstration of this is the double-slit experiment. It is a simple setup with impossibly deep implications. When you fire a single particle of light at a barrier with two open slits, it does something that should be impossible. It creates an interference pattern on the screen behind it, a pattern that proves the particle behaved like a wave that split, passed through both slits at the same time, and then interfered with itself. But here is the twist that shatters reality. If you try to catch the particle, If you place a detector at the slits to find out which one it actually went through, the magic vanishes. The interference pattern disappears. The wave collapses, and the particle, as if suddenly aware of your curiosity, behaves like a simple, solid billiard ball, going through only one slit or the other. This is the observer effect. The very act of watching changed the outcome. The act of measurement did not just reveal reality, it created it. This throws every assumption you have about the world into question. It means reality is not a passive, finished movie you are watching. It is an interactive performance, and your observation is a key participant. It raises questions that blur science and philosophy. Is the universe just a haze of undecided potential, waiting for a conscious observer to look, before it makes up its mind and collapses into a single fact? And if particles can do this, what does it say about you, a being made of those very particles? This is a perfect metaphor for your own life. In classical thought, a choice closes a door. But in quantum thought, a choice collapses a branch. But in quantum thought, a choice collapses a branch. Until that moment of collapse, the world remains wide, alive with contradiction, filled with futures that haven't yet been pruned. This applies to your heart, your past, and your identity. You are, at every moment, a superposition of selves. You are both the person who left the job and the person who stayed. You are the person who spoke up and the person who remained silent. You are the one who forgave and the one who didn't. All of these yous exist as ghostly, unmeasured possibilities, a wave function of your potential. The story you tell about yourself is just the collapsed version you've chosen to observe. The paths not taken are not gone. They are simply unobserved, still dormant, still possible, waiting for a reason to appear. This is why being truly seen by another person is so terrifying and so profound. Intimacy is a form of collapse. When someone truly observes you, they are, in a sense, a detector. Your wave function of possibilities tightens. You become finite and specific in their eyes. They measure you, and you become the version of yourself that they see, while all your other potential selves hum beneath the surface. So the next time you feel stuck between two choices, two fears, two futures, remember the particle. It does not choose prematurely. It does not reduce itself before it must. It holds contradiction as its identity. It is for a brief, glorious moment, everything at once. And so are you, until you decide to look. 25. The exponential deception. Why your brain can't see the 40-second fold. You hold a single, ordinary sheet of paper. It feels light, fragile, and fundamentally limited. You know this from experience. If you try to fold it, you can double its thickness once, twice, 3 times. But as you continue, the layers build, the air resists, and your own strength fails. By the 7th fold, almost all paper becomes too thick, too resistant, too real to bend to your will. Your linear, physical experience confirms this. The paper has a hard limit. Your brain logs this as a fact, and that is why your brain is completely unprepared for the truth. The truth is a mathematical. What if that shatters our intuitive reality? What if you could keep folding? What if you had the power to bypass the physical resistance and just continue the process of doubling? If you could fold that paper 42 times, that fragile sheet, which began as 0.1 millimeters thick, would form a tower that stretches from your hand to the moon. You laugh, or you recoil. It feels like a lie, a trick. It must be. But the math is ruthless. Doubling is not a line. It is a storm. This is the power and the terror of exponential growth. At first, the process is invisible, beneath the notice of your senses. After 1 fold, it's 0.2 millimeters. After 10 folds, it's barely a centimeter thick. still laughable, still nothing. After 20 folds, it's over 100 meters. And this is where your brain, the linear processor, breaks. The leap from nothing to everything happens in a blur that your mind is not evolved to predict. This is the great exponential deception, a cognitive blind spot that defines your entire life. You are a linear creature, walking through an exponential universe, and you are blind to the most powerful force shaping your reality. This is not just about paper. This is the mechanism of everything that matters. It is the hidden architecture of failure and the clinical, cold formula for success. Think of debt. The first fold is a tiny interest charge, a rounding error. The 10th fold is a manageable payment. But the curve is bending silently, invisibly. By the 30th fold, the doubling has become a monster, and you are buried. Think of addiction. The first fold is a single drink, a single pill, harmless, invisible. The 20th fold is a habit. The 40th is a cage from which you cannot escape. You didn't see the moon-sized tower being built because your brain was still looking at a single fragile sheet of paper. This is the dark psychology of systems. It is how things creep up on you. This is how you boil. This is how you wake up one day wondering, how did I get here? It is also the secret of power. Those who understand this mechanism can exploit your linear mind. A government erodes freedoms not all at once, but in 42 tiny, imperceptible folds. A corporation builds dependence. A manipulator establishes control. Each step is so small, so reasonable. You don't fight back. You can't even see it. You are at fold 7, convinced it's just paper, while they are already calculating for fold 42. But this mechanism is also the key. It is the cold, hard, beautiful formula for mastery. While others are looking for the one-time linear leap, the master understands the fold. They apply the same, boring, invisible action, day after day. They meditate one day and feel nothing. They save $1 and are still poor. They practice one scale and still can't play. This is the patience the original text mentions, but it is not a hopeful patience. It is a clinical one. It is the psychological pain of the early folds, where all your linear senses scream that you are failing, that nothing is happening. This is where 99% of people quit. They quit at fold 10, just before the curve. The real growth was about to begin. They are trapped in a linear mindset, demanding a linear reward. The world, which only celebrates the final visible 42nd fold, mocks their small, invisible effort. But the master knows the truth. The resistance, the boredom, the difficulty is not a sign of failure. It is the physical proof that the curve is bending, that the weight is accumulating, that the leap is near. So, look at your life. The moon is 42 folds away. You don't need a miracle. You don't need permission. You just need to understand the fold. You need to pick one thing: your skill, your health, your knowledge, your savings, and make the first invisible fold. And then, you must have the cold, calculated discipline to make the next one. And the next, while your linear brain screams that it's pointless. You must trust the math, because the math is the only thing that's real. Change is not a roar. It is a whisper, doubled 42 times, until it becomes a force that can shake the world. 26. The Mpemba Paradox. How boiling can be a shortcut to stillness. You have grown up believing in order. You trust implicitly that the world unfolds in predictable, logical sequences. You believe that cold must follow hot, that slowing down must follow speeding up, and that before any object can freeze, it must first pass through the intermediate stages of being cool, then cold. Then cold. This is the staircase logic of our physical world, a set of rules that feels safe, grounding, and inevitable. You boil water for tea and instinctively wait for it to settle before placing it in the fridge. You trust that temperature falls like a staircase, one step at a time. This assumption makes sense. It aligns with the logic your body understands. But nature, as always, is far more complex, subtle, and in many ways, more perverse than our intuitions. Under certain, specific conditions, this fundamental law of cooling is not just bent, it is broken. In certain circumstances, a volume of hot water can freeze faster than an identical volume of cold water. This is not an urban legend, a myth, or a trick of the mind. It is a verified, repeatable, and deeply unsettling phenomenon known as the Mpemba effect, named after Erasto Mpemba, a Tanzanian student who in 1963 dared to question his physics teacher when his hot ice cream mixture froze faster than the cool ones. This paradox shatters our linear assumptions about change. How can something filled with more energy, with more thermal chaos, with more heat, reach a state of absolute frozen stillness sooner than something that was already halfway there? Scientists still debate the precise combination of mechanisms, and it doesn't happen in every single case. But the leading theories point to a dynamic, chaotic process. Hot water evaporates more rapidly, reducing the total volume of water that actually needs to freeze. It has more vigorous convection currents, allowing it to shed its heat to the environment more efficiently. It may hold fewer dissolved gases, which can change its thermal properties, or its heat may alter the container's interaction with the freezer, allowing for better thermal contact. It may even resist supercooling, a state where cool water can drop below its freezing point without actually becoming solid, whereas the hot water, in its volatile state, crystallizes more readily. But the true power of this scientific fact is not in the physics, it is in its profound and deeply dark psychological metaphor. The Mpemba effect is a hidden, physical law of transformation. It tells us that the path to stillness, to peace, to a new, stable form, is not always the one we expect. It tells us that heat, your intensity, your chaos, your passion, your rage, your trauma, is not always an obstacle to reaching cold. Stillness, peace, stability. It suggests that, sometimes, boiling can be a shortcut. This idea violates every clean, linear narrative our culture sells us about healing, growth, and self-improvement. We are constantly told to cool down, calm down, be patient, temper yourself. We are taught that our intensity, our boiling emotions, are the problem. We are advised to suppress the fire, to wait until we are lukewarm before we can logically proceed toward a cool solution. But what if that is the very advice that traps us in purgatory? The Mpemba effect offers a more violent, chaotic, and ultimately faster alternative. It suggests that the boiling state is not a hindrance. It may be the very engine of a rapid, non-linear transformation. Think of the hot water as a person in a state of acute emotional intensity. They are dynamic. They are evaporating what they no longer need. They are shedding baggage, illusions, and false selves at a high rate, reducing their volume. Their internal state is convecting vigorously. They are processing, churning, and shedding their heat, their pain, to the environment more efficiently, perhaps through art, expression, or confrontation. The cool water, by contrast, is the person who is numb, suppressed, or avoidant. Their internal state is stagnant. They hold on to their full, heavy volume of unexpressed grief. They are stable, yes, but in a way that resists the phase change. They are too cool to change. This is not just poetic. It is a practical, if dangerous, model for transformation. The person who boils, who allows themselves to fully experience the white-hot intensity of their grief, their anger, their desire, is not delaying their healing. They are in fact accelerating it. They are in a state of rapid change, and by passing through the fire, they may freeze into a new, solid, and stable form of self-awareness much faster. Meanwhile, the lukewarm person, who suppresses and copes, remains stagnant, trapped in a stable state that refuses to change. You see this in systems. Slow, cool reform can stagnate for decades, but sometimes a hot revolution, a moment of intense, boiling chaos, leads directly to a radical freeze, a new order, a sudden crystallization of a new way of life. This is the hope and the warning of the Mpemba effect. Your heat does not disqualify you from peace. Your intensity is not a sign that you are broken. It may be the very engine of your transformation, the force that allows you to leap ahead of those who never dared to burn. The conditions must be right. Yes, extremes are unstable. But in a universe that allows for such a beautiful, dangerous paradox, you are not lost just because you are hot. You may, in fact, be closer to stillness than anyone, including yourself, can possibly see. Sometimes, the fastest path to ice is through the fire. 27. The seething void. Why your numbness is a lie. You look at the night sky, and you see darkness between the stars. You perceive this deep, silent, eternal blackness as emptiness. You imagine this void as a vast, profound nothing, a stillness that separates planets and galaxies, a place where no wind blows, no light flickers, and no substance floats. This assumption of empty as still is comforting. It feels like a peaceful canvas upon which matter is painted, a necessary pause between the cosmic beats of time. You were taught to call this space, or a vacuum, and with that word comes the deep, intuitive, and fundamentally wrong assumption of absence. We carry this metaphor inside us. When you feel empty, numb, or hollow, you assume you are in a state of absence, an absence of feeling, an absence of thought, an absence of motion. But what if this assumption is the most profound lie your perception has ever told you? What if that emptiness is not empty? What if the darkness between the stars is not the stillness of death, but the hiding place of the most restless, violent, and chaotic activity in the universe? Because it is. The vacuum of space, the very place you thought was the closest thing to nothing, is in fact seething with activity. It is not silent. It is a raging, subatomic storm, a constant, flickering chaos of existence, bursting into being and vanishing before anyone or anything can catch it. This is not science fiction. It is the core truth of quantum field theory. And once you understand it, you will never look at emptiness, especially your own, in the same way again. To grasp the fullness of the vacuum, you must first unlearn what nothing means. In our classical, everyday world, a vacuum is a container with zero particles, zero pressure, zero presence. It is a void. But quantum physics, the rulebook for reality at its smallest scale, reveals that even in the total absence of matter, there is still energy, a kind of permanent, foundational trembling that never rests, known as the zero-point fluctuation. According to quantum field theory, the entire universe is made of underlying fields, one for each type of particle. These fields are the very fabric of reality, and they permeate all of space. They cannot be turned off. And even when they are in their ground state, their lowest possible energy level, they continue to vibrate, like the surface of an ocean that is never perfectly still. These unquenchable vibrations give rise to what scientists call virtual particles. These are not imaginary. They are ghostly particle-antiparticle pairs that leap out of the void, borrowing their existence from the energy of the field itself. They burst into being, exist for an infinitesimal instant, a fraction of a second so small it defies imagination, and then violently collide and annihilate one another, vanishing back into the nothingness from which they came, paying back their energy. Debt. This is happening constantly, everywhere, at a rate you cannot comprehend. The vacuum, therefore, is not empty. It is a frenetic, boiling soup of potential. This is not just a wild theory. This activity has real, measurable, observable effects. These virtual particles are responsible for the Casimir effect, a proven phenomenon where two perfectly neutral metal plates, placed impossibly close together in a perfect vacuum, will be pushed together in a perfect vacuum. Not by any internal force, but because the storm of virtual particles in the space outside them is greater than the storm between them. They are also the theoretical source of Hawking radiation, the mechanism by which black holes are thought to slowly evaporate over eons. This proves that the vacuum is not nothing. It is the birthplace and the graveyard, in a constant, restless cycle. Nothingness is not stillness. It is an infinite storm. And this has implications that go far beyond physics, into the very nature of your own mind. How often have you felt like a vacuum inside? How often have you felt numb, hollow, still, or lonely? When you feel this, you assume you are in a state of absence. You think, I feel nothing. But what if that nothing is a lie? What if your internal emptiness mirrors the external one? What if your quietest, most numb moments are, in fact, your most active? What if that stillness is just a mask for a chaotic storm, boiling just beneath the surface of your perception? What if your numbness is not an absence of feeling, but the overwhelming, deafening noise of all feelings at once, a quantum storm of fear, desire, memory, and potential, all flickering so fast and contradicting each other so violently that your jiwo, dao wai, or tayo, conscious mind simply gives up and interprets the cacophony as a single, static zero. You are made of these fluctuations. Your very thoughts arise from matter that is, at its core, flickering in and out of certainty. You are not a solid object. You are a standing wave in a field of these vibrations. This flips our entire understanding of the self. Absence is not the opposite of presence. It is its foundation. The void is not the enemy of form. It is the condition for it. It is just like silence, which is not the absence of music, but the charged, electric potential between the notes that gives music its meaning. It is like darkness, which is not the death of light, but the contrast that allows light to be visible. The vacuum, this so-called nothing, is the raw, untamed potential of everything. It is not the end. It is the origin. So, what does this teach you? It teaches that your emptiness may be fertile, that the gaps you fear, the pauses, the lonely nights, may be the very moments your system is boiling over with potential, preparing something new, something too fast to see. Your silence may be the birthplace of your next flame. The next time you look into the dark sky or into your own internal void and feel the loneliness of nothing, remember what physics knows. The vacuum is not empty. It is boiling. And so are you. 28. The weight of emptiness. Mass is trapped energy. You grow up with a simple, intuitive, and deeply flawed understanding of the world. That mass equals stuff. You believe that mass is substance, the dense solid core of existence that gives things weight and form. You imagine atoms as tiny, hard marbles, the indivisible bricks of the universe. You picture protons and neutrons as heavy, solid spheres. You believe mass is a permanent, tangible quantity, the very definition of what is real. But then, physics leans in and whispers a truth so strange, it destabilizes everything. Most of that stuff doesn't actually come from the things themselves. Most of the mass in the universe, including the mass that makes up your body, does not reside in particles. It is created, not from substance, but from energy, from motion, and from the furious, violent tension of the void itself. Mass, it turns out, is not a thing. It is a behavior. It is a storm trapped in a shell, a fire you have mistaken for a rock. To understand this, you must go inside the proton, one of the fundamental building blocks of your body. You are told it's a particle, but it is composed of 3 smaller particles, quarks. If you add up the intrinsic mass of those 3 quarks, you get a shocking result. Their stuff accounts for less than 2% of the proton's actual measurable mass. So, where does the other 98% of you come from? The answer is wild. It comes from energy. It comes from the ferocious kinetic energy of the quarks, zipping around at near relativistic speeds. It comes from the binding energy of the gluons, the particles of the strong nuclear force, which act like cosmic rubber bands, yoking the quarks together in a furious, never-ending dance. The interior of a single proton is not a static thing. It is a raging, chaotic storm of tension and motion. And according to Einstein, energy is mass. Mass is simply the weight of energy that has been slowed down and trapped. A proton is not a pebble. It is a container for chaos. The mass you feel is not its substance. It is your hand pushing against the fury of that trapped energy. The resistance you feel is its inertia, its mass. Now scale this up. All the visible matter in the universe, the stars, the planets, the cities, your hands, is made primarily of protons and neutrons. This means the mass of everything you can see arises not from stuff, but from this roiling subatomic activity. You are heavy not because you are full, but because your emptiness is alive. And the emptiness is real. An atom is over 99.99% empty space. Even its nucleus, where all the mass is a tiny speck in a void. And now, physics tells us that inside that speck, the solid protons are also hollow storms. Mass, then, is a story of confinement. The strong force is so potent that it never lets a quark escape, trapping it in this endless energetic circuit. The pressure required to keep this chaos from exploding becomes the thing you call substance. Mass is the weight of the universe resisting its own unbeing. Even the famous Higgs field, which gives fundamental particles like electrons their mass, works the same way. It is not a particle-giving machine. It is a field of cosmic molasses. As particles move through it, they encounter resistance, and that resistance to motion manifests as their mass. Again, mass is not a thing. It is an interaction, a process, a behavior. This is not just physics. It is a profound psychological metaphor. If matter, the most real thing, is actually made from motion, tension, and emptiness, then perhaps the same is true for you. What is the weight you feel? The mass of your trauma, your grief, your stress. Perhaps your heaviness is not because you are broken, but because you are burning. Perhaps your stress is just the energy of selfhood confined into shape. You feel like a contradiction, and you are. But contradiction is what gives a proton its mass. Maybe it's what gives you your meaning. The silence inside you, the space that feels hollow, may not be empty. It may be the very thing that allows for your formation. Stillness is not absence. It is tension balanced so perfectly, it appears calm. So, the next time you feel heavy, remember what physics says. Your mass is not from what is visible. It is from everything that won't sit still inside you. You are not built from substance. You are built from relationships, from motion, and from an emptiness that is loud with life. 29. The paradox of the chase. Speed stretches time. You live your life inside a rhythm you cannot hear. It is the steady, invisible ticking of time. A force you have been trained to believe is fixed, equal, and universal. You believe that 1 second for you is 1 second for everyone, that time flows like a great smooth river, carrying us all at the same, consistent speed. You plan your life by this assumption, you set your clocks by it, and you trust it. But this belief, perhaps the most fundamental of all, is a comforting illusion. Time is not a river, it is a fabric. A stretchable, pliable, and personal thing. And the faster you move through space, the slower time itself moves for you. This is not a metaphor. It is a physical law, and it means the faster you chase the future, the slower it arrives. This is the core of Einstein's revolution. According to his theories of relativity, the speed of light is the ultimate speed limit. As you accelerate, as you move faster and faster, you get closer to this limit, but strange things begin to happen to reality itself. your time begins to slow down relative to someone standing still. If you were to travel at 90% the speed of light, your clock would tick demonstrably slower than a clock on Earth. To you, inside your ship, nothing would feel strange. Your heart would beat at a normal rate. Your seconds would feel like seconds. But when you returned, you would that the world you left behind had aged more than you. This is the famous twin paradox. Send one twin into space at high velocity, and when they return, they will be physically younger than the twin who stayed home. Time is not absolute. It is relative, warped by motion. And it's not just motion. It's gravity. General relativity proved that massive objects also warp space-time. Clocks run slower in stronger gravitational fields. Your watch ticks ever so slightly slower at sea level than it does at the top of a mountain. This is not theory, it is a daily measurable fact. The GPS satellites that power your phone's map must constantly correct for this time bending, or their clocks would drift out of sync and fail within minutes. Now, this is where the physics becomes a profound and unsettling psychological mirror. If time can be bent by physical velocity, what about emotional velocity? How often have you experienced this dilation yourself? We talk about how time flies when you're having fun, a high-velocity joy, or how a minute stretched into an hour, the crushing gravitational pull of trauma or anxiety. We treat these as metaphors, but perhaps they are echoes of the same physical law. Perhaps your internal state is its own form of velocity, one that stretches and compresses your subjective experience of now. Think of the person trapped in deep grief or trauma. Are they not, in a sense, like the observer near a black hole? Their internal time has crawled to a near stop, frozen in a single moment, while the outside world seems to be racing callously ahead at an impossible speed. Think of the person in a state of high anxiety. Are they not like the astronaut traveling at near light speed? Their internal clock is frantic, sped up, and out of sync with the slower, calmer rhythm of everyone around them. Their now is not your now. This is the paradox of the chase. Our culture tells us to hurry, to move fast, to get ahead. But physics whispers a dark warning. Speed separates. The faster you go, the more your personal timeline dilates, pulling away from the shared, consensual rhythm of the world. You think your speed will bring you closer to the future, but it actually isolates you in a bubble of your own unique, slowed-down time. This is the cost. The astronaut, who ages slowly, cannot watch the world keep pace. They gain time, but they lose history. They return young, but they return alone. Perhaps this is why stillness often feels so profound. When you stop chasing, when you stay, when you sink into the shared gravity of the present moment instead of trying to flee it, you are not wasting time. You are realigning your clock. You are resynchronizing with the world, with others. You are choosing to share time rather than bend it. So the next time you feel time slipping, remember it is not just slipping. It is stretching, bending to the curve of your own choices, your own speed, your own emotional gravity. You are not racing time. You are shaping it. And the faster you go, the more your seconds slow, not to punish you, but to remind you that time does not belong to everyone equally. It belongs to those who feel it. 30. The long goodbye. Why the moon is a metaphor for slow loss. You look up at the night sky and you see her, the moon. She is suspended above the earth, a glowing silver sentinel, our most ancient and dependable companion. She has lit the darkness for every human who has ever lived, pulled our oceans with invisible strings, and inspired our myths, our calendars, and our dreams. She is our softest mirror, reflecting the sun's harsh fire into something tender, something we can actually bear to look at. We see her as a symbol of permanence, of eternal return, a fixed point in a world that spins too fast. But this, like all our romantic notions of permanence, is a beautiful lie. The truth is quieter, sadder, and far more poetic. The moon is leaving us, not in a rush, not with a dramatic rupture, but with a perfect cold patience. She's drifting away, measurably, relentlessly, at a rate of about 3.8 centimeters per year, roughly the speed your fingernails grow. It is a distance so small that no one feels it, a motion so slow that it takes eons to notice. But it is happening. But it is happening. She is stepping back, like someone who knows they must leave, but does not want to cause a scene. This is not a metaphor. It is a mechanical, gravitational fact. And the culprit is not some external force. The culprit is us. The cause begins in our own oceans. The Earth spins, and it drags its massive oceans around with it. The moon's gravity pulls on this water, creating the tidal bulges. But because the Earth is spinning faster than the moon orbits, it pulls this tidal bulge slightly ahead of the moon's position. This forward-facing bulge of water, billions of tons of it, now has its own gravity, and it tugs forward on the moon, like a slingshot. This constant, gentle tug accelerates the moon, pushing it, centimeter by centimeter, into a higher, wider, and slower orbit. In this gravitational exchange, the Earth pays for this push by trading its own rotational energy. The moon drifts away, and in return, our own days get imperceptibly longer. We do not notice this change day to day, but in geological time, the story is stark. In the age of the dinosaurs, the moon was far closer. She loomed larger in the sky. Her tides were more violent, and her pull was more intense. And in the distant, far-flung future, the cosmic geometry that we take for granted will be broken. Billions of years from now, she will have drifted so far that her disk will be too small to ever perfectly cover the sun. The phenomenon of a total solar eclipse will become a physical impossibility, a lost relic of a time when our companion was closer. The dance will not end in a crash. It will end in a slow, irreversible drifting apart. This is where the physics becomes a profound and dark psychological metaphor. The moon's retreat is a perfect parable for a specific and deeply human kind of loss. The slow loss, the loss you don't notice until it's over. Not all departures are a storm. Not all endings are a rupture. Some arrive as silence, as a subtle creeping shift in orbit, as a shadow that just grows fainter over the years. This is how many things truly end. A friendship doesn't break, it just drifts. You stop calling, they stop calling, and one day, you realize a gap of 3.8 centimeters has become a gulf of 3.8 million miles. A lover fades, not with a fight, but with a slow cooling distance, until the pull is gone. This is the long goodbye. It is the identity you once had, the person you used to be, who didn't vanish overnight but just drifted away, millimeter by millimeter, until you no longer recognize them in the mirror. There is no single moment of breakage to point to, no explosion, just a quiet, widening gap. And because it is not violent, we do not fight it. We do not even see it. We are blind to the slow drift, and we wake up one day to find the sky has changed. And yet, the metaphor holds one last, strange and beautiful piece of hope. Distance does not erase influence, it only changes it. As the moon retreats, she slows our spin. Her exit elongates our days. She is changing the very nature of our time. Even as she leaves, this is the grace of this kind of loss. What leaves us still leaves something behind. A pattern, a rhythm, a new way of being. The gravity of the memory never quite lets go, even when the object is gone. The moon is leaving, but she is not gone. She still pulls our oceans. She still keeps her rhythm. She still shines. And perhaps that is the most profound lesson of all. That connection is not always about closeness, but about the pull that remains, even across the void. 31. The gravitational illusion. Why up doesn't exist. You were born into a world where up and down were the first and most fundamental truths you ever learned, long before you had words for them. Up was the sky, light, and safety. Down was the dirt, the fall, the danger. This simple vertical axis, burned into your neurochemistry by the relentless, invisible pull of gravity, became the primary organizing principle for your entire experience. You learned to crawl, then stand, then climb, and every motion reinforced this binary: up is good. This physical bias soon became your core psychological metaphor. You built your entire map of meaning out of this vertical space. Your maps have north at the top. Your ceilings are above your head. Your shadows are beneath your feet. This orientation is so total that you project it onto the entire cosmos. You look at the stars and assume you are looking up into a vast room, one with edges, corners, a floor, and a ceiling. You instinctively search for the center of it all, assuming, with a deep, unexamined gravitational ego, that you are somewhere near it. But what if this entire framework, this foundational belief in up, is a complete lie? What if it's a local prejudice, a sensory illusion, a cheap trick played on your mind by your proximity to a single, medium-sized speck of rock? This is the cold, decentering truth of modern cosmology. All of our most precise measurements of the universe's oldest light, the cosmic microwave background, tell us that on the grandest possible scale, the universe is flat. This doesn't mean it's two-dimensional, like a sheet of paper. It means it is geometrically Euclidean. It means that parallel lines, if you could draw them across billions of light years, would stay parallel forever. It means the angles of a massive triangle drawn between galaxies would add up to 180 degrees. It means light travels in straight paths, unless locally distorted by a mass. This flatness, which we measure in the faint, ancient echo of the Big Bang, has a terrifying and liberating implication. The universe has no center. It has no top. It has no bottom. It has no privileged, special location from which to say, this is where it all began. Every point in the universe is as central as every other. This means you, standing on your spinning planet, orbiting a modest star in a minor galaxy, are not in the middle of anything. You are not above or below one single thing. You are simply within. The up you feel, the direction you've oriented your entire life around, does not exist in objective reality. It is a local illusion created by a nearby gravity well. If you were to float in the deep, silent void between galaxies, your body would lose its bearings. Your mind would panic, desperately searching for an up or a down that the cosmos refuses to provide, because the concept itself is meaningless there. In deep space, there is no universal up. There is only the cold, indifferent relativity of motion. This is where the physics becomes a dark, clinical mirror for our own psychology. If the universe has no up, then neither do we. And yet, we are a species obsessed with this gravitational metaphor. We are taught, from birth to climb. Socially, professionally, spiritually, we must aim higher, rise above, elevate our thinking, and ascend to enlightenment. Our entire social structure is a vertical hierarchy, a frantic, competitive scramble to get above other people. We equate this ascent with value. But if space itself doesn't recognize verticality, then our entire obsession with it is a collective delusion. It's a local prejudice of the mind, a gravitational metaphor we mistook for a cosmic law. This delusion is the perfect tool for social control. It keeps you scrambling up a ladder that doesn't exist, consumed with status, always feeling below someone else, always desperate to rise. It is the engine of our deepest, most persistent anxieties. The flatness of the universe speaks to another terror, the absence of boundaries. We keep looking for the edge, the line where things stop, the wall at the end of the room. But in a flat, Euclidean universe, There may be no beyond. Space may just continue, indefinitely, infinitely. This is horrifying to the human mind, which craves containers, boxes, and borders. What if the answer is that you fit nowhere and everywhere? In this model, endings are a human invention. Edges are a psychological comfort. Direction is a cultural story. The universe is not a ladder you are climbing. It is a field you are in. So, what does this mean for you? It means you can stop. You can stop chasing up. You can stop fearing down. They are illusions. You can begin to understand that you are not climbing toward truth. You are floating in it, meaning does not descend from on high. It must radiate outward from you. The goal is not to rise, but to spread, to flatten the self, to erase the toxic, false hierarchy, and embrace the cold, terrifying, and ultimately liberating continuity of a flat, centerless, and directionless reality. You are not lost. You are just, for the first time, untethered. 32. The invisible gorilla. Why your attention is a cognitive filter. You trust your sight. More than almost any other sense, you believe that your vision delivers a continuous, accurate, and complete stream of the world. You think you see what is there. You cross the street believing you've checked both ways. You navigate, you drive, you recognize faces, all with the deep implicit confidence that vision equals awareness. But this confidence is a dangerous illusion. What if you are blind, far more often than you know? Not because your eyes are failing, but because your mind is elsewhere. What if your attention, that invisible cognitive thread, is so narrow and so selective that entire blatant, obvious events can unfold directly in front of you, and you will never see them? This is not a metaphor. It is a measurable, verifiable, and deeply unsettling cognitive phenomenon known as inattentional blindness. It is the mechanism by which your brain fails to perceive something that is fully, clearly visible, simply because it wasn't expecting to see it, or because it was focused on a different task. The most famous and terrifying demonstration of this is the invisible gorilla experiment. In this study, participants are told to watch a video of people passing basketballs and to count, with intense focus, the number of passes. Halfway through the video, a person in a full gorilla costume walks slowly into the middle of the scene, beats their chest, and walks off. And what happens? Over half of the viewers do not see it. Let's be clear. They don't forget it. They don't kind of see it. Their brain deletes it from reality. When shown the footage again, they are stunned, confused, and often accusatory, insisting the video has been changed. The gorilla was not hidden. It was in the center of their gaze. But because their attention was tasked with counting passes, the gorilla was deemed irrelevant data, and it was filtered out before it ever reached their conscious awareness. You can look directly at something and never see it. This is not a glitch in the system. It is the feature. Your brain is not a high-definition camera. It is a limited processor, bombarded with millions of sensory inputs every second. It must prioritize to prevent you from being overwhelmed. It builds a working model of the world based not on everything you see, but on what it needs to see for the current task. Your attention is not a floodlight, it is a keyhole. And this is the dark psychology of it. This mechanism, which is necessary for focus, is also what makes you blind. This is not just about videos. This is how you live. This is why you miss the red flags in a new relationship. Your attention is not a neutral observer. It is tasked with falling in love. It is focused on the charm, the desire, the positive signals, the evidence of manipulation, of inconsistency, of danger. Those are the gorillas. They are right in front of you. But your brain, in service of its task, deletes them. This is why car crashes happen at intersections. A driver is looking for cars, and their brain filters out the irrelevant data of the motorcycle, or the pedestrian that is right in their path. The most haunting part of inattentional blindness is not what you miss. It's that you never realize you missed it. You walk away from the experience with 100% confidence, swearing you saw everything. You forget that you never saw it. This creates a profound and dangerous overconfidence. You insist you would have noticed. You swear you checked. You believe you listened carefully, but you didn't. In our modern age of constant, frantic distraction, endless notifications, task switching, screen addiction, our attention is perpetually fragmented. We are living in a state of chronic, inattentional blindness. We are scrolling past a friend's subtle cry for help because our brain is tasked with consuming content. We are missing the slow-motion gorillas of our time. Societal decay, environmental collapse, the erosion of our own values, because our attention is glued to the immediate, trivial task of the next outrage, the next trend, the next notification. There is hope, but it is not passive. If blindness is a failure of attention, then the only antidote is the deliberate training of attention. You must practice widening the keyhole. You must build the habit of pausing, looking again, and consciously, humbly asking the question, what am I not seeing? What gorilla is in this room that my brain is deleting? You are not a camera. You are a narrator. And all narrators have blind spots. The wise ones, the ones who survive, are the ones who know they do. And they keep looking, they keep listening, and they stay humble because they know that what's right in front of them is never, ever the whole story.